Questions like, why are we here? What happens when you die? Where did we come from? And is there a God?
The U.S. government has been shown to have had a long-term interest in Scientology.
This is a practical question here.
I know this is an illusion, or dream, or call it the way you want to call, you know?
We are a bigger threat to the people who are secretly trying to control this planet than any other group on this planet.
But the problem with an atheist is he believes that his belief is based on fact.
Oh, it's wireless. Yeah, you got wireless one.
He's impressive. He's a powerful guy.
I can't make this shit up.
The leaders of this are not just after our church, they're after the whole of this planet.
He was put here to work out his own salvation. And we feel in Scientology that we've made a very big stride in that direction.
Howdy everybody, welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host, Captain Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy. And isn't it lovely to be here listening to the good old Straussy-Walsy? This is the podcast that has everything to do with the interesting world of Scientology. Yes, that odd religion you might have heard about. If you don't know what Scientology is, then I'll tell you what it is. It's a bunch of self-help books and exercises that evolved into a religion created by American sci-fi author L. Ron Hubbard in the 1950s. Today's guest interview is with Robert Dam, Part 2. Part 1 was actually a while ago, probably 6 months ago or something, but now finally got on to Part 2. It's a nice long one. How did you like the last show with Jonathan Burke? That was revisited. Jonathan Burke revisited again. A bit slower paced, but we still covered quite a lot. Oh! Now it's time for us to go down that rabbit hole into the interesting world of Scientology, where up is down and down is up, where left is right and right is left, where what you thought was impossible is possible. Welcome to the show on this 28th of November, 2018. Yeah, so welcome. To start off the show, I've got an independent Scientology success story. It's from the Milestone 2 group, which is, I think, located in Canberra in Australia. And this is a success story. It says, new OT5 completion. Wow, could not have a better auditor. It is so nice to be duplicated and be able to just communicate. ARC could not be higher. I am cause and I am certain about it. Any case around me is insignificant at this point. All my roadblocks are gone. No one can stop me. LRH really has the way laid out for us, and we just need to do it as he wants us to. Thank you, LRH. Thank you to Tom for auditing me and being a real terminal for me. Thank you, Linda, for being there and working with Tom to keep the tech alive. I feel fantastic. That was from Lisa Hamilton. All right. I don't know if that was actually in Canberra, or I don't know enough about the Milestone 2 group. But yeah, anyway. It's now time for Post of the Week. And this is from Brendan Riemann. And it says this. So here's the bad news. There are a lot of real anti-Scientologists. I don't mean the free zone here, who are to me simply unorthodox independents, but the real anti-crowds that don't believe there is such a thing as tech and they consider LRH to be a con artist. I like to point out that we bring our own opposition. Many of these individuals would not be in the fight if the church had not worked so hard to smash any and all criticism out of existence. Certainly a good deal of them would not be fighting if they themselves or people close to them had not been hurt by abuses practiced by the Sea Org. Many others would not be in the fight if the church had not continually and abusively exploited its people and violated the laws of the land. Only a small handful would be attacking and continuing to attack if the church had behaved well instead of badly. If you have many enthusiasts on your side and you're okay to take a little criticism, then it really doesn't matter if there are a few critics out there. However, the moment you start trying to destroy or smash all criticism out of existence with legal harassment, dead agenting, lies, and more extreme overts, it will expand the critic base by 10 times and more will continue to spring up. Think about this. If you don't find anti-Zen hate groups or groups dedicated to destroying Christian Science or science of mind groups, think about this. You don't find anti-Zen hate groups or groups dedicated to destroying Christian Science or science of mind groups. In fact, even weird cults are tolerated right up to the moment some insanity like the old Heaven's Gate community dramatization. Food for thought, my friends. Let's never get to that point in the free zone, ever. It never bodes well for Scientology as a workable technology. It's weird. It never bodes well for Scientology. Oh, I'll look up that quickly. Hold on a second. Bode's law. Hold on, bode. Be a portent of a particular outcome. So like a sign or a warning that a momentous event will come. Be a sign. Okay. Sign an event. Be a portent or of a particular outcome. It's never... Okay, hold on a second. This is what you do when you use ridiculous words like bodes. I never looked up that word before. It never bodes well for Scientology as a workable technology. Okay. The church is dramatizing a third dynamic engram, in my subjective opinion. I think since we're all external now, we have the opportunity to observe the Church of Scientology's case and perhaps come up with a handling. Maybe. I'm very open to all comments and corrections. With ARC Brendan. Oh. So that gets comment of the week. Yes, I think I agree with him where the church sort of creates their enemies by attacking them because people just get excited by that and fired up. I think if you just don't have the attitude of attacking, then it just doesn't fire them up. I guess it's like a dog, you know. You got a dog barking at you or whatever. If you go attack it, then it'll want to fight. But if you just maybe let it bite you a little bit and then it just goes on and gets bored and walks off. You know what I mean? There's a way you can sort of quieten things down and make them more peaceful by just sort of leaving it and not fighting them and not flaring them up. I'm not sure though if OSA stopped sort of attacks on... Well, we have to understand a lot of these OSA attacks and stuff, they're making interesting things happen and stuff for people like Chris Shelton to talk about. And yeah, I think if you did get rid of some of OSA stuff, Chris just wouldn't have as much things to criticize the church about and things to talk about as much. But I feel like someone like Chris is such a loser and hasn't gotten over his experience with the Sea Org for so long. that even if there was no OSA attacking him, or Lear's show or whatever, I think he would still go on and just be a hater and just be low-toned as he is and just pick on Scientology. But maybe it flares him up. I don't know. It's a kind of interesting theory. I mean, I was thinking with my Facebook page and YouTube, I would just leave attacking comments and not really do anything about it. But other people are like, oh, you should just delete those comments. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So there's different ways you can go about it, and I'm trying out the whole deleting comments thing and seeing if that works well. But I found that, well, anyway, if you're doing something good that's going to piss off some people, they're going to come after you and they're going to attack you. But with the whole anti-Scientology people, if they're good with their anti-Scientology protesting and stuff, I don't know. It would be interesting. Yeah, look, I agree with his post. That's why I got post of the week. Okay, I think it's definitely worth an experiment to just drop any OSA activity and just leave it. And I mean, personally, and just what the independents do, they're just busy doing Scientology, so they don't bother doing those sorts of things. I think OSA should be dealing in like serious church things, like legal cases where some ridiculous person is trying to sue the church for $36 million, like what happened in 1985 with that court case. I mean, how the hell did she get ruled? Like, that's outrageous that she was trying to get $35 million from a church. I mean, that is such a clear attack. Like, that's clearly not her just having an upset experience with the church. Like, maybe they took some of her money or something and she had a rough time or whatever, so maybe she get $300,000. But, like, $35 million? I mean, that's just so obvious it's just a load of rubbish. Anyway, OSA's got to handle this sort of attacks, because that's what can happen. When the enemy want to bring down a religion, they can just pull out these ridiculous lawsuits out of nowhere. Ones like that, it's just crazy. Anyway, it's now time for a Scientology joke, and this one here is a little bit of an Australian theme to it, so I'll just let you know that Ned Kelly is kind of like a Western bushman, you know, Wild Wild West sort of guy. He actually he actually shot a lot of coppers, like corrupt coppers back then, still corrupt to this day, but back then they were corrupt because he was Irish and they were English and they were just being racist against the Irish and having a go at them and stuff. Anyway, so back then he shot up a bunch of coppers, then died while he was doing it. But, well, there could be a conspiracy to that story, actually, when you think about it. But anyway, there was basically a siege and like a building burnt down, I think the Glenrowan Hotel, and he was in there, and he covered himself in metal, and he just went out there and was shooting coppers while he was covered in metal. He lasted for ages, but then their hotel burnt down, and the question is, I bet you the cops said that it was the Kelly gang who burnt it down, but it was probably the coppers who burnt it down to make him leave. Sounds like, okay, well, maybe the coppers did admit that we burnt it down, because maybe they're more honest back then. But it reminds me a little bit of this whole situation in, I think, Waco, Texas or whatever in the early 90s, where the FBI tried to force this cult out of a building, and they just burned on fire and shot everyone and killed everyone. And then they blamed it on the crazy cult leader, and it was just so outrageous. Anyway, it just seems like a similar situation where the cops have a problem and then they just burnt it, and they could have blamed it on, you know, one of the Kelly gang, you know, or they set the building alight on fire. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, here's the joke. What did the Scientologist say to Ned Kelly before he read Ned's tea leaves? Oh, tea before Ned does not get you up the bridge. Yeah. It's now time for today's guest interview. It's with Robert Dam, part 2. Part 1 was ages ago. Now I've finally gone to part 2 because he had a long story. And this interview is even longer, I think, than the previous one. We get into a little bit of a debate, I think. But anyway, I think you'll like it. So let's dig into this, chuck on a pot of tea, and let's hear some talk about the world's most interesting and controversial religion, Scientology.
After all, we haven't been invited, and curiosity often leads to trouble. Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
All right, it's now time for part 2 of my interview with Robert Dam, the ex-Scientologist, who's written a book. And what's the book called again, Robert?
It's called The Defector.
Oh, yeah.
My 20 years in Scientology.
Yeah, it's a good name. It sounds like a like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Defector. So you weren't ever in the Sea Org, were you?
No,
No, you weren't. You were just a public for when you say 20-something years, are you talking about just the church or independent Scientology as well?
No, that's just the church.
Just the church.
I was in the church from 84 to 2004.
Yeah. And we were, in our previous interview, we started off a bit slow, but towards the end of it, it started to get pretty heated when you were talking about how Marty Rathbun and the Sea Org flag were making you confess to a crime that you'd never done, or crimes that you'd never done, and it was really having the effect on you, where you were saying how you thought that that you really are an SP and you really are bad.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, and it was pretty interesting, because it was like, whoa, it was really deep, and it just was so similar to the book 1984, when the guy goes in and gets pressured to admit that I don't know if he had to admit something. 2 + 2 = 5 or something, but anyway.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's right. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were at Flag. You lied about doing some naughty things because you had to give them something, because you knew that they would never let you leave unless you told them you'd done something wrong. So you told them things that you did that were like, that you didn't actually do, that weren't incredibly bad, that wouldn't get you SP declared and wouldn't get you into trouble with the law, but were just bad, so that they had something on you.
Yeah.
And then Marty Rathbun looked at your case in ethics, and he said you could go back to Europe.
Yes, that's basically how that ended. I don't remember exactly where we got to, but he was not really satisfied in the meeting we had. I thought I was going home because I admitted to various stuff, as you say, that I made up, so I could admit to something. And they wrote an affidavit, which was, I think, 10 or 12 pages, how terrible a guy I was and how much help my church had given me. And that I should pay back an amount of 180,000 Danish kroner, which would be, I don't remember how much that US dollars were at that time, but probably around $20,000 US or something like that, I should think. 25 maybe.
What
so they got something for their effort.
Was this affidavit just put into your ethics file, or was it actually like posted on the walls and made public or something?
It was made public, and it went to the, what you call the publicus notarius, we call it, the notary, public notary office or something, which is a legal thing in the city of Clearwater, and it was stamped and signed, so it was actually a legal document that I admitted to all these things, and that I had to pay back that amount of money to compensate for all my misdeeds. So and I put it on my website. It's all actually, I think it's still on my website, so everybody can see what a terrible guy I was. And I read it some years back. I read it. I just couldn't believe that they actually signed off to that. It's really crap and it stinks. It's really obviously made up. I mean, I came to my senses and recognized what a terrible criminal crook I was, trying to make a profit of my brotherhood and all that kind of stuff. And that they helped me to see that I was just a criminal. And now I feel much better thanks to the great help of my church and blah 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 blah. It's thick. It's really thick. Anyway, I signed to that because for me that was the only solution, the only way I could get out of that trap I was in. And it was 21 days at Flag, and I don't think I had one full night's sleep because they would wake me up, they would call me for interviews, not interviews, interrogations. There would be one guy, two guys behind the e-meter, looking at the e-meter, looking at me, shouting at me. And so I was really broken down. I was totally broken down. And when I had this after signing the affidavit, after admitting to all my crimes and overts and admitting to pay back that amount of money, I was kind of cleared to go back, and I thought I was going to go back. So I packed my briefcases, and I was ready to go on that plane and get the hell out of there. But then I had to have the final interview with Marty Rathbone. And I'm telling you this because I don't remember whether I told it last time, and it's quite a while ago.
Well, that's all right. We'll go over it again anyway. But I just don't get why they don't, like, why weren't they sleeping in the middle of the night? Like, I don't quite get it. Don't they always have locked in, unless there's like some special big international event, don't they always have locked in, you go to bed at like 11:30 and wake up at 6:30 or something like that?
No, not the security force people. They are kind of different. Working all hours, you know?
Yeah.
And these guys were RTC top people. I don't think they ever sleep. I mean, these RTC guys, they work always, and they always have some case they need to solve. And you know, it's not like ordinary SEAL members. This is like the top of the top, right?
Why would they get you in the middle of the night?
Once again?
Why would they get you in the middle of the night?
I mean, they just did it at any time, a day or night. Probably to break me down or to just piss me off or something like that. I mean, you hear about that stuff in the Sea Org, that all of a sudden Miscavige calls, he wakes up everybody and they had to go to the pool and jump in the cold water or whatever. It's just madness, you know. It's just a way to break people down, I think. So I think it was quite deliberate. They wanted me to weaken me. You know, if you don't get your sleep, and you don't have any money. I mean, I didn't have any money at home, so I couldn't pay the house rent. I couldn't pay food for my wife and my child, and we didn't have anything. You know, so it was really. I was at a very vulnerable position. So I think they just wanted to make sure that I broke down, which I did. And in the last interview, before going back, Marty Rathbone looks at me. He asked me to pick up the cans, and he looks at me and he says, "I'm not happy, Robert. I'm not happy. You're trying to deal your way out of this problem. You haven't really cognized that you are the bad guy. You are the one. You are the why. We were not mistaken about you. But you're trying to make it, to deal you out of your trouble. Successfully. But I've spotted you. I don't buy it. I want to see you take full responsibility for everything that's happened. And full responsibility means it's on you, it's your ownership. Something like that. I don't remember the words, but you know, so at that point, I just looked at him and said, okay. And I broke down. I started crying. I'm bloody 34, 35 years, a grown-up man. And I just couldn't resist anymore. And since he was saying like that, I saw that I wouldn't go on the plane anyway. I just saw that, you know, the whole thing is just a big failure. And I turned the whole thing around in my own head and said, well, what if he was right? What is it if it's actually true that I am responsible? I'm totally responsible. Then it is my own doing. I can only thank myself for anything that I experienced, which is also in line with Hubbard's thoughts and so on. So, and then it dawned on me that maybe that was actually true. I was a criminal. I was a crook. And so everything turned around in my own head. And I told him that he was right. And I felt that he was right. That was a kind of, what you can say, epiphany, or whatever you would say. Like, he is right. I'm a bloody crook. I am a bloody crook. And then I, as I said, I started crying in front of him, and I asked him to have a second chance. And he was looking at me, looking at the e-meter, looking at me, just not saying anything. And then at the end, he looked at me, and he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "All right, Robert, I'm going to give you another chance." And at that point, I felt totally grateful. Like how amazing is that? He's sitting in front of a crook who's been trying to rip off the church, who's been making so much trouble and resisting, weeks after weeks. And now he's giving him another chance. That is the definition of greatness. So I was very, very thankful and grateful to him. And he gave me an ethics program. I need some steps I need to sort out. One thing was to pay back all the money. I did need to do all the low conditions. And I just had an ethics program. I had to call every Scientologist and non-Scientologist that I told about the whole situation and tell them that it was all sorted out and it was because of my own wrongdoing and blah, 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 blah. And I did the whole ethics program and I completed it. That was back in Copenhagen because it took a while to make the money and all the stuff. So he sent me back. I went on that plane, came back to Copenhagen. I spent maybe half a year for finishing that ethics program. And I did everything. I paid back the money. I called everybody I ever told about the whole thing, with the interrogations and going to flag and being actually more or less imprisoned and so on. And I told everybody that it was my own fault and I was a crook, and they helped me at flag to sort me out and blah, blah, blah. And I did my liability, went into the Sea Org in Copenhagen, the AOSH EU. Did the liability, all the seniors there read it and signed it, and I think it was half a year, maybe a little more actually, maybe 3/4 of a year, but I finished it. And then I went to Marty Rathbun's people in Copenhagen, the RTC rep, I think it was called the RTC representative. I don't remember his name, but he said, "Good, Robert, very good, very good. So now everything is good." I said, "No, everything is not good. You need to reinstall me in good standing, but since you published that I was the SP for Europe, I was the guy sabotaging the expansion of Europe. All the crimes you made public the whole thing. My old friends from DK, the other Scientologists from DK org, were not even allowed to hang out with me. They were not allowed to. Some of them went to have dinner with us and they got a KR and were sent straight to ethics for having anything to do with me and my wife. So I said, you guys have declared me in bad standing and now you need to declare me in good standing because I've done everything I should. I have evidence, I have signatures, I've done everything. I paid back the money, I have receipts, I have everything. Here's all the documentation that I've done what I should, what Marty Rathbun told me. So now you need to reinstate me to good standing. But there was no way they wanted to do it. They just didn't want to do it. I couldn't do anything. They did not want to reinstate me to good standing. He said, "Well, you are in good standing. We don't want to issue anything in writing on this." And I said, "Well, you did issue something in writing, and you told it verbally to staff briefings all over the place that I was the bad guy. I was a crook. They nailed me, and now you don't want to reinstate me in good standing." He said, "Well, that's no problem, right? You are in good standing now. We don't need to talk more about that." Then, that pissed me off. But what could I do? Nothing.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't do anything. So then my old friend from IAS, International Association of Scientologists, one night he called me at my work and said, "Robert, I know everything that happened. I know you're not a bad guy. I know you've known you for so long. You're not a bad guy. I knew that all along. So you want to kind of get back in good standing and show the world, the Scientology world, who you are and that you're a good guy and so on. I have the solution. You pay for an honor roll. And then at the next IAS gala event at Hotel d'Angleterre, the most famous hotel in Copenhagen is called d'Angleterre. That's where all the rock stars and all the big businessmen and politicians, they live there when they come to Copenhagen. And of course, IAS would arrange their gala dinner at d'Angleterre, nothing less. So he said, we have a gala dinner coming up at D'Angleterre. All the new sponsors, honor roll, patrons with honors, whatever it's called, they will go on stage individually. I'll hand them the plate. I'll tell the name. You'll be photographed. You'll get in the Impact magazine. And there will be nobody in doubt that you are in good standing and you are a good guy. That's the way we do it. So I said, okay, let's give it a chance. So I paid him money for the honor roll.
How much?
Status. How much? Honor roll. What is honor roll? Was it 10,000 US? I think honor roll was. I don't remember anything. I must admit, but I think it was 10,000 US for the honor roll. Well, it's in my book. I looked it up. I found the receipt somewhere. It's in my book. I don't remember. I didn't have to pay for the whole honor roll because I was already a sponsor. So I need to pay the amount between a sponsorship and an honor roll. I think it was 10,000 India. I don't remember. But anyway, I paid the money and I took on my black suit and attended the gala dinner with my wife. We also paid for the gala dinner, by the way. I think that was 250 US or 300 US each person to just attend the gala dinner. We paid for that, and we had our table, and we came, and everything looked very nice, and so on. And I went on stage. I was announced as an honor roll. Joachim from IAS did it himself, as he promised. And I went on stage with my nice black suit and got the plate with my, or what do you call it, the plate, this metal plate with your name engraved in it. Robert Dam has become an honorable member, and I went on stage and they photographed me and people applauded and everything went to plan. Except when the Impact magazine came out, and that was like the plan that the Impact magazine would be the big blow, because then everybody would see that here I was. When the Impact magazine came out... Now hold on,
is the Impact magazine the IAS magazine?
Sorry, yes, IAS have their own magazine. It's called Impact.
Yeah.
And it's like a glamorous thing, you know, where they always show these gala dinners and people standing with their certificates. And
yes, and it shows
nice
the real... the upstart families, and the beautiful women and that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, that's it. And that was that kind of gala dinner, you know. And when the Impact came out, all the images was there. Only one guy missing. That was me.
So all the other people who donated were featured in it, but you weren't.
Yes, I mean we had a picture made of all of us. Okay, a group picture with all the guys who had just attended a new status. They would be photographed all together. I think with one of these IAS guys, executives in the middle, and then everybody was standing there with their medals or whatever, including me. But when the Impact came out, I had been retouched out of that image.
That's so outrageous. That would have annoyed you so much.
and the image of me alone, because I was image of everyone who got a status had an image alone on stage, right? That image was just not in the magazine. All the others were there, but I wasn't in. And the group image had been retouched out of the image. So there was no mention. There was no image of Robert Dam in the Impact magazine. So they really didn't want to have me back in good standing. Anyway, that's basically how the story with the church more or less ended, because I didn't leave the church. It took many years before I actually went ahead and left the church.
Why do you think the people who are compiling the Impact magazine would even would do that?
I wrote to the editor, and I got a letter back from him. So I have in writing, actually, that he didn't get clearance to bring my image in the Impact magazine. He have to apply for clearance for every single person, because something can happen, you know, from that IAS gala takes place until the publication of the magazine goes maybe some weeks. Something can happen. Somebody can get in ethics trouble or whatever. So he have to apply for a clearance for every single person that he showed in the Impact magazine. And he did not get the clearance for me, because he said there appeared to be an outstanding ethics matter with AOSH EU. Okay, with that letter and with the Impact magazine, without my image, I went back to the RTC representative at AOSH EU. I said, come on now, this is the evidence that you do need to put me back in good standing, because I wouldn't get a letter from the editor of Impact telling that he could not bring my image because of an outstanding ethics cycle. I wouldn't get that if I was in good standing. So now you see, you have to put me back in good standing. That's it. This is the evidence. What more can I do? And he just looked at me and shook his head and said, no, Robert, no, you're not getting it. Sorry.
Wow. It seems like if you became in good standing again, it might make them wrong.
Yeah, I think so. It was crazy. I mean, I was ready to continue up after all that I experienced. I actually forgave the church. I actually put the blame on myself, and I was ready to pay for my OT levels. And I mean, I had to pay for OT. I was OT 5, so it was OT 6 and 7. I didn't have the money, but I was ready to start working on it. You know what I mean? And my wife was back in DK Org doing her academy levels, and we were getting back into the fold. We were getting, we were working our way back. So why the hell wouldn't they? There's no other reason that it would make them look like they had been mistaken, and they just can't have that. You know?
Because maybe what you admit, like people, maybe they were trying to get you for something, and they couldn't get you on something, and it was a little bit rocky. And then you actually did admit to some crappy things that weren't even that good. And so they were like, yes, we'll just cling on to this. But it was still a little bit rocky. And then you do a full thingo and you get back in good standing and you're donating heaps. Then suddenly people will go, hold on a second. Like some exec might go, hold on a second. What if he wasn't the real why?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I feel like if somebody, I can see how someone shifty would want to do that. They want to be like, no, we have to make Robert out to be the bad guy. Yeah, he has to stay as the bad guy. So
yeah, because otherwise, who was the bad guy? Then they need to find somebody else. They have to have a scapegoat. So I think you're right. I mean, I can't find any other explanation anyway.
Those magazines are so perfectly crafted and manipulated, and when there's events and there's people telling their wins at the events, it's like so scripted and perfect. It's not like a casual photo of, hey, we're having a gala, here's the photo and let's put it in. And when you watch those promo videos and they show people in the background, it's not like that they're actually really people in the background. They're like pretty much actors. Like it's all set up. And David Scavenger's speeches are all scripted. It's all so PR-y and that sort of stuff, So it doesn't surprise me that they would look in each picture and they would make sure that there's no naughty people in those photos, and they would actually go to the effort to airbrush the person out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting as well how you were saying how you started to think that maybe you were a criminal. I think that makes sense because I've came across it a bit in life where someone says something and then another person says something and you don't agree with that, but another person says it and you start to think, yeah, maybe I am wrong. Because it's just when more people disagree with you, you start thinking, oh, maybe I am wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have an idea just repeatedly given to someone, and I don't know too much about implants, but I imagine that when government, like these secret parts of government do their pain, drug and hypnosis stuff, I imagine they repeat the idea, like assassinate this person, like kill this person, or you're going to get sick if someone mentions the word H. And they wouldn't say it once, they'd say it again, you're going to get sick if someone mentions the word H. And you put it in with force, and you keep on putting it in with force. So, and that's how you effectively do it, because they literally can install that in people. But I imagine, with you, your one was like a mini PDHing basically, because you were sleep deprived, you were in a state of stress and fear and badness because of all this drama, and then they were repeatedly forcing this idea onto you that you're wrong, you're bad, and they were just bringing you more and more low-toned. And I could see how as they keep on pumping you with that, and you get more and more low-toned, and introverted, you end up just taking in that command, and you're like, oh, I am a criminal. Fuck, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works. That's how it works. I mean, I suppose that's what you could call brainwashing. But it was very, to me now when I look back at it, it's obviously that it was set up. I mean, it was routine. It was like it was deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing. Like arriving there, the first thing they do is taking my passport. Okay, so now I'm in their control. They have my passport. I can't get out of the country. I mean, that's the first thing. And then they just start on the whole interrogation thing and so on. I mean, I think they knew exactly what they were doing. It's like they were professionals. I mean, I was not the first, obviously.
Yeah, but how many of you do you think knew that you were actually innocent?
I mean, over there, nobody knew. I mean, probably my friends would know, of course, but over at Flak, I mean, nobody knew me. So it was just like, here's a crook, we just have to break him down and get him to confess, and that was what they did.
So do you think any of the execs in the AO and in Europe, do you think any of them were actually suspicious that this Y was actually a load of rubbish?
Yes, they must have been. They must have been. Because they knew me, and they knew I was not a crook. So on the local level here in Europe or Copenhagen, I'm sure. I mean, also one of the DCO, the deputy captain, I think it's called, he was sent in ethics. I worked very close with him, and he was sent in ethics as well. And I'm sure he's called, what's his name, Freddie or. No, I forgot. But I'm totally sure he knew it was crap. And also the other people. I mean, the director of promo and marketing, the DPM, he was doing all the magazine. I mean, all the editing of the magazine and the layout and so on. So I worked closely with him also. And I mean, these people I knew well. I'm totally sure they didn't buy it, but they didn't dare tell anybody, of course.
They could also have a lot of cycles going on and stuff, and they could have been like, for the sake of the group, we just need to blame him. Even they could be thinking, you know, he's probably innocent, but we need to just let him take the blame for this, so that we can move on and be positive and try and clear the planet or something like that. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
But it's a total out of ethics behavior.
They were loyal to the CEO, of course.
So how did you go with getting your business and work started up again?
Yeah, but I did get back to my printing business. I didn't work for the church anymore, of course, but we got other clients, but the whole thing went bankrupt. I mean, since I came back from Flak, I didn't regain my strength, my personal power, my my energy level, my intention, I just couldn't. So I went bankrupt with my printing company. We had many customers and all kind of stuff, but I went bankrupt, and also because I took money out for the church. I took money out for my honor roll. I took money out for other things. I had to donate to different things and all kind of crap, because I was so focused to get back in good standing. So it ended up, the whole thing went bankrupt, and I was declared personally bankrupt also. That was back in 1999. And then after that, I started working for other people, not Scientologists, but I started working in the print business as a sales manager for another business and so on. But I was not doing really well, because I couldn't find my old enthusiasm and power and so on. So I also was sick. You know, I would get a pneumonia or whatever you call it. And I would be sick.
Now, hold on. Can I ask a question, right?
Yeah, sure.
I haven't done the OT levels, but on this whole event that happened and stuff, isn't it possible that back then you could have audited yourself on it and gotten yourself in a winning situation again? And also, did you already, because the church has screwed the OT levels, did you already run into problems with your case prior to this event actually happening? Anyway, like what happens to OT5s anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I had but the problems with my case was the usual problems that everybody had, but nobody spoke about. You know, like they were not going exterior, they were not getting these abilities and so on. Everybody had the same problem, but nobody mentioned it because they all thought it was their own case.
But this
you know?
this life force you're talking about, where you're saying like you keyed in basically, and you're not winning or whatever. Were you already starting to have those problems prior to this event happening?
No, I wasn't, because I was living in my own world, convincing myself that I had success and going up the levels and getting more and more OT and so on. So I was actually doing good, and I didn't have problem with my health and so on. So that all of that happened after that flag incident.
And so, and my question about how you can audit yourself on it, like, can you run a PTS rundown on yourself or something like that?
I don't remember if I ever did that, actually. I'm not sure if you can do that solo. No, can't answer that. I'm not sure you can do that solo. But
did you try and solo audit this this key-in you had of this whole event? After it happened, did you then try and solo audit yourself and get yourself back into good shape, or is that not possible?
No, you can't do that when you're in the church. There's no way you can see as yourself for a solo session. I mean, you can't do that. Also, I was doing OT5, which was audited by an auditor, so I was not in a solo level. I was on OT5.
Okay, and you probably
I hadn't even finished OT5 fully yet.
Could you? But were you thinking in your head, I've got to get back on OT5, or I've got to get a PDS handling, or something like that?
Yes, I wanted to get back on OT5.
Okay,
I wanted to get back on it and finish it. I was in the end, so I was almost finished.
You need to get the money together.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get the money for one intensive, or whatever they call it. You know, these packets of 12.5 hours.
Yeah.
They call it intensives. So I need to buy 1 or 2 intensives, and then I need to buy OT6 and OT7. So that's basically I had my mind set on that. That's what I wanted. But of course, it made it slightly difficult because I had such a disagreement with these RTC guys that they didn't want to reinstate me in good standing. So I didn't feel very welcome in the org. And nobody of all my Scientologist friends, nobody knew that I was in good standing. I mean, there's been nothing about it. And in the Impact magazine, even no mention. So nobody knew. Everybody would look at me as a crook. So it's not like a very nice idea to hang around. I did get in to the org. This guy was called Freddy. This guy, was that what I said before? Freddy. There was a guy I worked closely with. He was the DCO for Delivery and Exchange. I mean, this deputy in command of the whole AOSH EU. He went in ethics, he went out again. And I met him in the courtyard one evening. I was in the org speaking to a Reds or something. And I met him, and he was very happy meeting me. And he was back in good standing. And he also didn't know I was back in good standing. Nobody knew it. So it's not like I was not very keen on like hanging out at the org, you know. And I also didn't have the money. But basically, that was what I wanted to work through. I wanted to work through the whole thing, starting on OT5, finishing that, and getting on to OT6 and 7. I didn't have the thought of CSing myself for a solo action. I mean, forget it. I would be SP declared on the spot. You do not self-CS. You wait, you pay for CSing, you pay for auditing. The CS will order what is the next action, and you just do that. So I didn't have any thought of starting solo auditing myself in the middle of OT5 or making a solo PTS handling. I don't even think that exists, Andy. I'm not sure. I don't think it exists. But all these ideas, I mean, those you could get in the free zone perhaps, but not while you're in the org. I mean, it's the CS is an authority. You just do what the CS order, basically.
So then what happened? How did you actually come to leave the church?
It happened many years later. I mean, this all happened in winter 96, 97. Then the IAS event was probably in 98. And I didn't get in the Impact magazine. I worked through my ethics program and so on. So I think that basically during 98, I had finished my ethics program. I had more or less given up on RTC, and I was not getting anywhere, and my company was struggling, and so on and so on. So I basically went into limbo, or where I didn't move, I didn't do anything. I just kept a low profile. My wife was getting back on her academy levels, doing the new Golden Age of Tech e-meter course and academy levels, and she was happily doing that. And then in the summer of 2003, I got an email from my former brother-in-law. He was OT7, and he said that he was living in Sweden, having a wise company in Sweden. And all of his employees were Scientologists and so on. And he said, he just sent me a short email just to say that he refused to disconnect from two of his employees, two of his executives. If he was ordered to do so, he would refuse to disconnect for them. I thought, what the hell is that all about? You cannot refuse to disconnect if the org is ordering you. I mean, it's not a question. What is he into? And I took it up, and he said there's something totally wrong at management level, completely wrong. And I said, yes, I know. So he said, okay, isn't it about time that we find out what it is? And then we started together to research into the whole org. We started reading about the Sea Org on the internet, which was, of course, totally illegal. I mean, that would send you straight to ethics if they found out.
And so how did you build up the guts to do that then?
I don't know. It's just because I knew that something was really wrong since the experiences I had myself.
But weren't you concerned about getting sent? Weren't you concerned about getting SP declared or getting into more trouble if you did that?
Totally. So we just agreed that it would stay between the two of us.
Yeah, but you'll get found out if you went back on services at the org. You were doing
totally.
But
and my wife couldn't know because she was in the org every day on services. So it was but you're right. I was in a state of total paranoia all the time. I was just afraid of being found out. I mean, I even thought I heard some people out in the garden. I went out the house and walked around the garden to see if there was anybody watching me. I was total paranoia.
So, but how did you, that initial thing when you first actually went and started looking on the internet, and you knew you were committing an overt, how did you do that?
Well, I did it together with my ex-brother-in-law, and he had some links because he had already started a little bit to start looking at the net to see, and he found some links that talked about the coup that found place when they took the copyrights, when the management got hold of LH's copyrights. What actually happened? What happened when LH died? And all these things. And then the funny thing was, I recognized a lot of the names of earlier executives, that you don't hear about anymore. There was a Portland case, the big court case in Portland. I thought, I got the story from the church that we were 100,000 Scientologists protesting and that we won the case. Now I could read on this website that we didn't. It was settled. And I started searching.
Really? I thought they won the case.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody thought so, but they didn't. It was settled. And they paid, I think it was $36 million to get this woman to keep quiet. Of course,
Really?
nobody knew
I
because she was
thought
not
that
supposed to
they,
tell.
from the story I heard, I don't know where I heard it from. I heard that they went and spoke to the judge, and I assumed that they had bribed the judge or something like that, and that's how they won it through some sort of dodgy way of bribing the judge. And I thought, oh yeah, that would be about right. But what are you saying happened?
They didn't win. They settled it. They paid a huge sum to this Julia something. I have forgotten her name.
So they did. So you're saying they did, which is funny. They did a secret settlement, basically.
Yeah, they always secret
because they want to seem like the victor. They want to have it announced that they won the case.
Yeah, exactly. And the settlement includes in that settlement it is written that they cannot. I mean, they get some money from the church, and they can never ever reveal it to anybody. If they do, they will have to pay all the money back. And that's how they always do these settlements. So they're sure that nobody knows how many millions they paid to make people quiet.
That's
I mean, they even had. Yeah.
This just reminds me of just how you just never know with anything. Like, you could be watching the news and they could be like, they decided to settle with the blah, 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 and then you don't know the actual truth, or they go, this person won this case, and you just don't know what really happened, you know? You just don't know with anything, you know?
Mm-hmm. But it was funny with that Portland case. That was an eye-opener for me also, because I was at staff when that case was going on, and we actually worked around the clock because many of our fellow staff members went over there to Portland to participate in the big demonstrations. So we had what they call a Hill 10, you know, like a emergency kind of situation where we had to fill in for 2 or 3 other staff members because they were all over at Portland to protest. And we were told because we had staff briefings every after lunch, I think 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there would be a staff briefing, and we were told that we are now 100,000 Scientologists gathered at Portland. But later on, when I started researching this together with my brother-in-law, we found out the press. There was actually several press articles we could find on the net from written by journalists, and they estimated about 8,000 Scientologists. So that's quite a long way from 8,000 to 100,000, as we were told. And then I found out the whole thing about the settlement. Even the press wrote about that the case was settled. We never won it. It was bullshit. And then I found a statement from one OSA guy, from Office of Special Affairs, who was involved very much with this Julia something case. And he wrote about the whole settlement, and I think it was $36 million the church paid to make her quiet, or something ridiculous. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, there were so many cases. Even in Denmark, we had 3 ladies who paid a lot of money. I don't know, they must have been rich. I forgot their name. I even met them. They were like 3 ladies in their mid-50s. Probably they were from the rich area or something, because they paid all the way up to Clear and OT5. They went to Flag and did service and so on, and they were all 3 of them disappointed and wanted their money back, and they got their money back. There was a lawyer called Carlos Siebert. He represented them here in Copenhagen, and they got. I mean, we are talking a lot of money. They got all of it back, and then they made even a settlement, and nobody knows how much they got, because they were prominent ladies, you know, and they were really pissed off with Scientology. So the orc didn't want them as enemies. So they made a settlement. They paid all their money back and made some kind of settlement. And they have never told anybody how much they actually got. And there was 3 ladies here from Copenhagen.
Yeah, I know.
So that seems to be the way they handle all these court cases.
Yeah,
and they would tell internally, we won again, of course. We are the Victorian ones.
Yeah, well, especially with the Portland case, they don't want someone to win and other people to think, oh, I can do the same thing and sue them and get a similar result. So they like to keep it secret. And some of these people as well, I wouldn't mind criticizing them, because I remember hearing about some lady who was rich, and she went in, she did Scientology and stuff, and then she didn't get much wins and she complained. And yeah, the church is squirrel, but I mean, she was doing like OT1 and she was going off and buying dresses and coffees and stuff while she was supposed to be getting audited. And her attitude towards it was so blasé and casual, and she wasn't genuinely trying to get stuff out of it. And it's just like, well, no wonder why you had no wins. It's just like, Jesus. Mm-hmm. And sometimes some people, they hear of the EP and stuff, and then they really get influenced by that. And anyway, so then keep on saying what you were looking this stuff up on the internet, and then what happened?
Well, at some point it was clear to both me and my brother-in-law that this was basically more like a mafia organization than a church, because all the strange suicides, all those killings that has taken place in the history of the church. There was just too much of it. It was all over the place, and we could find the names of for instance, the broker, the sales guy who sold the ship, the Freewinds, which was called La Boheme. The guy did not want to sell it to Miscavige. He just did not want it in Miscavige's hands, and so they actually put a governant, like a lady, taking care of this guy's home and cooking food and taking care of the children and so on. She was from OSA. She was a Scientologist. So she got employed at this broker's house as his personal governant. And what she did, she tried to find out what was up with this guy. Was he into drug dealing? Was he this? Was he that? So whenever he was out, she would go through his personal files and feed all the information into OSA. At some point, she couldn't get any further. And the next thing you know is that the guy is found killed. He's like the Long Key, Florida. He's found in the water, dead, shot to his head, outside his home. And shortly after, we're talking weeks, perhaps less, the sales of La Boheme to David Miscavige is signed, sealed, and delivered. And that's just what happened. And it's in the press. You can read it in the press. The guy was killed. And they never found out who killed him. But he was killed. And shortly after that, David Miscavige could get his precious ship. And he renamed it the Freewinds. And there are so many cases of that. Even David Miscavige's own mother-in-law was killed. She went over to the Squirrels and joined David Mayo. And Miscavige was seen having a heated argument with I think she was called Mary Flo or something like that, his mother-in-law. And shortly after, she was killed, shot with a rifle. It's ridiculous. You don't believe it. I mean,
I think it makes sense, because if he's supposed to be a top leader in the church, because back then it wasn't like he was the leader, he was like one of the top guys, and he was wanting to make himself more of the president or whatever, and so he didn't want people knowing that his mother-in-law was going off and being an independent Scientologist. So he would have really not liked that.
Yeah, exactly. It was a big issue for him. So she was found dead, shot 3 times in the breasts and 1 time in the head with a rifle. And there was 2 different suicide notes, none of them with her handwriting. And the case was dismissed as suicide. There's no way you can commit suicide like that. It's just not possible. I tried to dig into it, and I found some article on the net from some newspaper that that somebody wanted to reinvestigate that murder because it could not be suicide.
So is this the woman that she used to be married to Ron Miscavige?
Mother-in-law, what is that? No, then it would have been his mother. So it must have been...
No, because I think Dave Miscavige's parents divorced, and Ron Miscavige joined the Sea Org in the 80s, and he might have had a new partner, and then David might have not agreed with this new partner.
Yeah. But there was just one case. There's many cases like that. I wrote about them in my book, not all of them because there are so many. But to me, it became very clear that this is a gang. This is just a math. I mean, these are criminals. These are gangsters. These are really bad guys. They kill. I mean, they imprison people. They kill them. blackmail them. They break them down mentally. I mean, they don't stop at any point, you know. So it was clear at some point to me and my brother-in-law that we had to get out of that organization. It was not a church.
It's really unfair because you have like a church member in Melbourne who's like this pretty good guy, doesn't really commit overts, who, because he gets asked for sex checks or like gets asked for withholds all the time, and because there's like, you know, the strictness in the church, he'll be really worried about like doing a job and making like a slight minor mistake, and like he'll be all introverted on that, and just be like, just have a weird paranoia about committing overts. And he won't know that the organisation that he's worried about getting in trouble from, like, a secret part of them are going out and doing outrageous things. You know, it's just like, come on. You know, I mean, if that's why I think knowledge can really change your case and the way you are about things and stuff, because you're like, your whole idea of overts completely change when you find out what's really going on. You're like, oh, well, that picking my nose session is just nothing. That's not an overt, you know?
Exactly, yeah. It's true. So they do that. I mean, they just want to have they just want to know everything about every member. So of course they do the sec check, they do the half year, you know, the 6 months check. When you are on OT 7 or 8, you need to go to the 6 months. Every 6 months you need to go to Flag to do one full intensive of sec checking and so on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they need to do security checks, of course, because they're doing dodgy stuff and they're trying to cover it up. You know, it's like you've stolen stuff from the cookie jar, and then every few minutes you ask someone, you know, where were you at this time? Do you know, like, because you're running around trying to find out if anyone knows what you did, you know.
Exactly, he's totally suspicious of everybody. Yeah. I mean, he's completely in paranoia all the time, this guy. So of course that, but that whole picture became clear to us. I mean, we also found some of the old executives that we knew and who had disappeared. I mean, and nobody just spoke about them anymore. They were retouched out of pictures from magazines. Nobody mentioned their name, and we were talking top executives on the European level.
Like Pat Broker or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, just here in Europe. And we actually found some of them, and we went together to Holland, we went to Germany, to Switzerland, to Sweden, to find these people and have talked with them, and we managed to a quite a big degree. So it became clear to us that we needed to quit this organization and do it as powerful as possible, and get as many of our fellow Scientologists to join us. To leave the organization and to do it loudly, you know, because we have been supporting a mafioso organization for 20 years.
Can I ask a question though? But what was your love of LIH Tech though? Like, did you think, the organization's a mafia, but damn, that Dianetics book is pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or were you just like, who cares about Dianetics? I mean, the organization's corrupt.
Yeah, it's funny because we needed to find. I mean, and I think that's a crucial part of it. We couldn't just leave the org and leave the tech and the OT levels and all that stuff. I mean, we had to find out if we could carry on, because we were so much into the whole Scientology ideology. We couldn't just leave it. I mean, if you're pursuing the goal of becoming OT, how can you live your life without that? You know, it's like it's not an option. So one very important thing when we started researching, me and my brother-in-law, was to find out if those alternatives out there were actually any good. So we started to look into the free zone. We found the Runs.org guys. And we started talking with them. We had meetings with them to see how they were performing, if they knew their tech, if they knew their supervisor tech.
Hold on a second. Now, I'm just wondering. So at this stage, you'd pretty much secretly left the church.
Yeah. We knew we had to leave. We just had to figure out how.
And Oh, okay, and but you were planning on one day in the future actually announcing it and letting everyone know we're going.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, continue.
Of course, I needed to put my wife in the picture,
Yeah,
so I
that's a
wouldn't
good
lose
point.
her.
What was happening with her? Did she know about all this?
No, she didn't know anything. I did it all secret.
All right, keep on going. So you were at Ron's org,
She was doing her at this period. She was doing her academy levels in the org. She was very much in the org. I mean, almost every day. She was happily studying away and seeing her friends from the org and so on. I couldn't engage her until I was totally sure where this was going. So in the beginning, we did all this secretly. And we found out, I mean, we recognized quickly that we had to leave this organization because we couldn't be part of that. Only a matter of how could we do it. And one important point, as I told you, was also to see if there was a replacement, if we could go somewhere else and continue our pathway to OT, or if we'd have to lose that. I mean, it would be a totally different thing. We didn't want to lose it, so we made contact to Free Zone and to.
Can I ask you an interesting question? Were you willing to, if there was no alternative to the church, were you still willing to leave the church?
That was what we couldn't decide that.
Okay.
We simply could not decide that. So we got stuck. I mean, we knew we couldn't be part of that organization. On the other hand, we could not leave the hope and the goals of OT. You certainly couldn't live without it. So we were stuck. So that's where we started. Okay, we need to find out if we can actually go and do our levels somewhere else. So that's the whole research took a change. You know, we made a turn there and said, okay, now we need to go into the alternative Scientology world to see if there's anything to go for. That would make us help the decision to leave the org. You know what I mean? That was how important the whole idea of OT, clear and OT was to us. So we were so much into it. You know, after 20 years, or this was not 20 years, it was maybe, it was 20 years. You're much into that world. You cannot think of not having that as part of your life. So we changed direction and started. Now we need to look into the alternative Scientology scene and find out what it is. And we, of course, only heard bad things about it from the church, like squeals, and they are all mad. They go crazy, and they squealing the tech, and we only heard there are SPs and whatever. So now it's we are up against that. We've been almost implanted with these thoughts for 20 years. So now we are making contact to these bad people, you know. So that was quite difficult, but we did so and found out that these guys were really good guys and they were totally into the tech. I mean, they almost knew it better than the church. I mean, they were really, and they had a more loose approach. They were not like that strict. I mean, it was not like in the Sea Org. It was very different. I mean, these guys would be drinking herb tea in their breaks, you know, be sitting around a big table. Everybody would be sitting, chatting to each other, drinking tea and eating vegetables.
Well, hold on. How's this different? How's that different to any other org?
In Scientology, in the church, it's not like a social. We hang out in a social meeting. This is like an army almost. It's almost like military with the command lines and with officers and executives and leaders and orders, and it's total.
Okay, all right, I get it. Yeah, it's not as casual.
You are totally stressed all the time to pay more money, to make more debt, to pay, to do your orders, to do as the CS orders, to do as the CO orders. I mean, it's totally different atmosphere. Then you go into the alternative church. Everybody sits chatting to each other, whether you are low down the command channel, whether you're the commanding officer. Everybody is equal. Everybody's drinking herb tea and having a nice time, taking it easy. It's like totally different thing. And that was a bit hard to us because we were used to the military type of approach. We're used to if somebody in the Sea Org approach you, you know it's because they want to sell you something. They want you to donate money for this or that. They want to sell you a book or the new books of basics or whatever, new course, and they want something from you. But in Run Talk, there's nothing of that. People would approach because they were interested in you, having a chat, see who are you, and speaking to you and hanging out, and it was entirely different. But despite of that, we found out that these guys, they knew their LA tech. I mean, they knew their tech. They were very good. And it was nice.
Was this in Copenhagen?
No, this was in Frankfurt. It was in Run Talk in Frankfurt.
Okay, so there wasn't one in Copenhagen?
No, one started in Copenhagen, but it shut down again. There was not big enough support here. They started doing one, and it ran for like half a year, and then it shut down again. But they still have the one in Frankfurt. I think it moved out of Frankfurt a little bit actually. But
there is a pretty popular one, and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, that's the one.
Out of curiosity, when you were there, I imagine you must have been like, "Whoa, this is what standard tech is," and GAT2 squirrel or GAT1 squirrel, and Dynetics Today, that book. Wow, you know what I mean?
It was like that, because all the stress of the Sea Org. I mean, all the stress that you have to pay money, that you have to do your next level, complete your level. I mean, all the pressure was off. So now we did it in our speed, and we could go into the tech.
Did you realize how the church was squirreling a tech?
I started to realize. I mean, we started asking questions now, all kind of questions, because that was allowed. That's not allowed in the church. I mean, you go straight to sect check or ethics if you ask the wrong questions. Here we could ask any question, so we did, and it was. I mean, in the beginning we were very, we were shaky because we were paranoid that anybody. I mean, we looked at all the other guys there, and we spoke in the evenings when we went home. We spoke who could be an OSA plant.
Yeah.
Who would be a plant? And we had that all the time. Who would be a plant? And who would
now, how are you
back?
smart enough to know that there were OSA plants? Was that because you just studied too much and you could tell how things worked?
Yeah, we knew how the org did. We knew it well. So we knew that OSA was doing these kind of tricks.
Did you spot anyone you think might be an OSA plant?
Once again?
Did you spot anyone who could have been from OSA?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Really? So you saw someone there who was pretending to be an independent Scientologist?
Not in the org, but at some not in the Frankfurt organization, but they had made a meeting somewhere in Holland outside Utrecht, I think, and at that meeting there was like a meeting for Scientologists who wanted or non-Scientologists who wanted to see what it was, like a recruitment or something like that. So they had a meeting there in Holland, and my brother-in-law attended it, and there were 2 plants, and they were also plants. He avoided getting recognized by them and escaped basically out of the back door.
How do you know there were plants?
What? Once again?
How do you know there were plants?
Because they reported us to the org.
So later on, he found out there were plants. But how did he know that there were OSA people there?
Because they were OT7s. He knew them from the org as OT7s.
Oh, and they'll pretend. And so, hold on. But when he saw them, didn't he think, "Oh, maybe they've joined, independent Scientology like me"?
No, he didn't. He saw these guys are plants, and they turned out to be.
Because they dobbed you in.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's what they.
He thought he managed to be not seen, but they had spotted him. So we were reported.
I've noticed this about OSA. It seems like they like to recruit people who are like some of these OT7s.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
They don't recruit. I mean, they don't make them join the Sea Org, but they ask them to do special projects. I mean, when they wanted me, when I was asking too many questions, and they wanted to sort me out and get me back into the fold, they had 2 different OT8s not Sea Org members, but just they asked them, can't you speak to Robert? So I had several meetings where they tried to make me understand that all of these questions I had was just because I was doing awards and so on, all the usual crap. But that was OT8, just publics, non-staff members. And so they do that. They ask these people for special favors and projects and so on. And the guys want to do something for the church, so they take on these projects.
Now, do you think they're doing these things so that they qualify for doing OT8?
Yeah, I mean, it all helps.
Yeah, because they have to build up a good record or something.
Exactly, you have to do that to be allowed.
So your brother went to a meeting, even though you said he left quickly, he still got spotted by the plants.
Yes, and we knew that because later on we saw reports, that they reported. Not me. I was not present at that meeting, but we actually what we also did was that we expanded the circle a little bit. We included another friend we had, and a long-time Scientologist, into our circle. So we were 3 people now. And then I got one more, so we were 4 people. And so we had a little, you would call it a little group of rebellions working secretly to get more data and so on. And they just didn't know who was in that little rebellion group. So they tried to find out, So they had different people calling me on the phone and so on.
So when they how did they first contact you? Did they call you and say, "Hey, I heard you were at some Ronsorg event. Our plant told us." Like, how did this all happen?
No, basically, when we were still doing our research into the church history and management and so on, I was asking questions to OSA in Copenhagen. They would call me in for meetings, and they would think, this line of questioning, it doesn't sound too good. So they were suspicious already.
Hold on a second. You were already asking questions to OSA?
Yeah, I was. When we started the whole research, and I was thinking, what, this sounds wrong, I would start asking questions to OSA. Because at that point, I didn't believe that it could be, so as bad as it was.
So were you writing letters to the...
That all this thing we started on the internet was that it could be the case. I mean, murder, imprisoning, stealing from the government, like the Project Snow White, the biggest...
So were you writing letters to the Inspector General, or were you writing letters to the ethics officer and asking questions, or what made you think I'm going to write straight to OSA?
No, I would ask straight. I asked straight to OSA because she is the one handling that type of questions. Actually, but it's a very a lot of events happened, Andy. I spoke to a person calling me, like from the call-in unit, calling me to attend an event or something. Then I attended the event because now I was suspicious. So I started asking questions that the other guys didn't ask, So they started, why is he asking these questions? I would attend.
What do you mean? At the event you were asking questions?
For instance, there was a fundraising event. They wanted to raise funds for a building that they now bought. And they started using it last summer in the middle of Copenhagen. But this was back in 2004. They had these fundraising meetings where they call in ambassadors, just because they basically want us to donate money. And at that point, I would already be suspicious. I would be already on my way to recognize that something is wrong, at the org. So I wanted to find out what it was. So I started saying yes to participate in these different events and so on. And I would ask questions, like what would the money be used for, and how much money, and this and that. Specific questions, and I would sit with my notepad and write them down. So they started getting suspicious. Why is he asking that many questions? And I was at several of these events and started asking all kinds of questions because I wanted to find out what is up and what is down. I was not at that point decided that this is just a whole MAF organization. I was in the middle of it, so I wanted to find out. And in that process, they get suspicious. They start inviting me in for meetings at OSA. Robert, what is all the line of questioning? What's up here?
Is this an OSA office in the advanced org?
Yeah, there's both ones in the advanced org, and there's also one at the Danish DK org, it's called. They also have their own OSA. So we always speak to this lady called Annette Rafstrup, that she would be the reference for that type of thing, legal stuff and that kind of stuff. And she was always also on my case. But basically they tried to answer my questions without really answering them and just find out what's wrong with me, what's up, what's on me, what is, what I was into. And they start, who have you spoken to, Robert? What have you told to this? Have you spoken to your friends? Is there anybody who told you bad things about the management? Who are you working with? I mean, they're trying this line of questioning. They knew something was going on. And
this is before they caught you at, or was it you or your brother who was at the event, the indie event?
It was my brother-in-law.
So it was before that happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was before that happened. Yeah. Then we went to Frankfurt together, and the fourth, as I told you, we expanded our circle a little bit, took in a third guy and a fourth guy. That fourth guy, I told him I was in Frankfurt, and he told it without knowing that he shouldn't. He happened to tell it to his employer, and his employer was OT8, Scientologist. And he said, Robert is down at Frankfurt. What is he doing down there? And then they found out that my brother-in-law was also. So they put two and two together. So now they kind of knew that we were working together, me and my brother-in-law. And we both been in Frankfurt. So they said, okay, so they are probably meeting with the Runtalk. So they were pretty well informed. And for them, it was a matter of containing the damage, so to speak, like if we were into Runtalk, into the squills, then they wanted to cut us out as soon as possible, But they wanted to find out who else was in this group, so they could contain the damage and get all of us out of the church in SP clearance as quick as possible.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically also what happens, We got SP clearance.
So do you think they found out about the Frankfurt indie event not necessarily because of a plant, but because they found out you were down there or something? Like they got two data sources that made them lead to the conclusion that you'd went to an indie event?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah. And then what they say after they caught you that you'd gone to the event? What they then say? Did the ethics contact you straight away, or also contact you? And what they say?
Yeah. They contacted me, but they couldn't get anything. They felt they couldn't get any further with me, so they started contacting my friend, the fourth guy.
But what were they asking you? What did they say to you?
The usual thing. What's up, Robert? They would attack. They would say, "Okay, Robert, what are you into now? You're having something going on. Why don't you trust the church? What, you still haven't sorted out your ethics, or that kind of things. But at some point they stopped. They must have realized.
What did you say though?
The thing is that I knew more about the history of the church than they did. And I knew all the OT levels. So these guys were not even on the OT. These OSAT people was not even on the OT level. So I was much further. I knew more about Scientology than them.
Did you say why you went to the indie event?
No, I didn't say that to them, that I was there.
Oh, you denied it?
No, I just didn't comment on it.
But
they knew it. They knew it, of course.
So they didn't say to you, "Hey, we knew you were at this event," because they didn't want people to know that they had a plant there. So they just asked you questions that made you think, "Oh, they knew that I was at the event."
Yeah.
Fun games, huh?
It was a bit strange, yes, because nobody wanted to speak, want to say anything really. We wanted to find out stuff from the other part. So that was basically how it was. At some point, I purchased the domain runsorg.dk.
Why'd you do that?
Because somebody wanted to start a runsorg in Denmark, and I thought I had to secure that domain, because the funny thing is that at that time, the Miscavige started using the term runs org about the church. It's quite amazing. We saw some promo pieces and so on where it says, "We are here at runs org." He started using that name to position it as the church name, So they were really frightened of runs org. And I know from somebody else that they had compiled a whole package of stuff, about the runs org, the squirrels, that like an OC3 who put gasoline on put himself to fire, other guys going crazy, all kind of bad stuff about the runs org. The squirrel runs org. They have compiled a whole package of so-called evidence, and they called in people to show them this. They were so frightened, I'm telling you, because I was OT5, my brother-in-law was OT7. We were prominent Scientologists, and we had a huge network. What damage could happen if we started speaking to everybody? They were totally frightened of that. So they were calling people just to warn them about this run talk thing. And meanwhile, at INT, they were starting using the term run talk about themselves. This is a good old run talk, and they started that's just as a term they would use to make it theirs. So there was quite a while actually.
So then what happened? When did you decide to officially tell them you're leaving and that you think that they're a mafia?
Well, I bought that name, the domain name runtalk.dk, and I didn't make it, you can make it, the owner is anonymous, but that, I didn't do that right away. I only did that the next day or 2 days after, but then that's just short window, they picked it up.
Wow,
and one of the guys speaking to me says, "Well, Robert, I know that you bought the name runtalk.dk." So they were totally on the board.
But what if they were already onto you, so they were probably just monitoring your internet activity all the time anyway.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
So anyway, so at that point we were very close to disclosing the whole thing. So I made a whole little booklet I sent out. I printed the booklet, 23 pages of all of the research I've done. The history of the church, the Ingo Swan case, all these things. How the whole thing linked together, and my own experiences and all the evidence and everything. I wrote it as I said, 23-page booklet. I put it in the mail and sent it out to a couple of hundred Scientologists physically. And that, of course, was a huge explosion because people read it.
What information
and they
did you
were
put
called
in there?
into OSA and ethics for reading it. And at the school, Scientology school, where my daughter was going in, attending the Force class, all the teachers were Scientologists. One of them was on the way out of Scientology. We didn't know. Christian, nice guy. He was at that point about to leave also. So he read my whole booklet and he was totally blown away by it.
And what information did it have again in it?
Once again?
What information did it have in it?
I put everything. I put everything about the murders in Scientology, the Ingo Swan, the CIA funded remote viewing project where they had OTs.
Is this available on the internet still?
It's in my book, all of it.
Oh.
They have these Scientologists, OT7s, Harold Puthoff, Ingo Swan, Pat Price. They were in a CIA-funded project that happened on Stanford University at San Francisco. It was a project that was working with psychic spying, and they used these OTs to start to find out where they could do some reliable spying. And Ingo Swan, he spotted a submarine, atomic submarine in the USSR. No, not USSR. It was called Russia. And no, that was USSR at that time because it was in the 80s. It was before the wall came down. And he spotted an atomic, a nuclear submarine, and he could give the exact coordinates from exteriorizing.
Yeah, and he spotted the alien bases on the moon.
And he spotted also the rings around Saturn. Before that, spaceship could make pictures of it. So he spotted a lot of stuff. This guy, he was OT7.
Yeah.
Or was he only? No, he was OT7. Yes, he was OT7. And then he did the new the new OT5 at flag, but he had mental breakdowns and he flipped out completely.
Really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
No way. Because hold on. The new...
That was English Swan. They also had another guy, Pat Price.
But hold on. The new OT levels were released in the early 80s, right?
Yeah, but he did the original OT levels up to OT7.
Yeah, but I don't think he did. I don't know if he did any of the new stuff. I thought that he was well and truly out of Scientology by the mid 70s.
I read, that was by the end of 70s. The new OT5, the nuts came out in 78. He did them.
Oh, wow. Did he do it?
He went berserk. He went crazy. They had to get him out. Yeah.
So that's interesting, because I know that he was involved with this government stuff, and he seemed to just not talk about Scientology. And the other two guys, Hal Puthoff and Ingo, who was the other guy? Hal Puthoff and Pat Price. They also seemed to just shut up completely about Scientology, not talk about it. And that to me was because they were told, you're not to talk about Scientology or whatever. Like, that's it. You don't talk about it. Because they got 3 Scientologists to start the remote viewing program.
And there were more involved. All put there by OSA. There were several clears also.
What do you mean put there by OSA?
There were several, because these guys were Scientologists, so they wanted other people involved in the whole project. I mean, there was money, because money came from CIA. So they had all kind of assistants doing this and doing that, and administrators and so on. And several of them was not OTs but clears, and they've been cleared by OSA to be part of this project.
So they wanted to be as much in it as possible. Back then it was called the GEO, so you're saying the GEO cleared them to do this secret
psychic you're right, at that spying, time GEO,
and to help the government develop psychic spying.
No, not the government, CIA.
Help the CIA, help the CIA develop psychic spying.
Yeah. I mean, LH was pretty paranoid about communists,
Yeah, but LH didn't like the US government, though. I mean, I'm pretty sure he made these OT levels, and he had the questions and stuff to make sure that no one from the government could get on them and that sort of stuff. Like, he was trying to hide it from the government.
Yeah, but the thing was, it was good PR. They used it as PR. They put it in the Advance magazine.
What? What'd they say?
Yes, they used it as PR that it's kind of proof that the OT levels work,
There's actually an Advance magazine that says, we had some OTs go and do spying for the CIA.
Or Source magazine. I don't remember which magazine it was, but maybe they were called something else at that time. I'm not sure about it, but there was an article. I think it was Advance or magazine. There was an article about it where they made a big thing out about it, that we have, that these guys have scientifically proven that the OT levels work and so on. They wanted to use it as PR. LH didn't matter. He just wanted the PR. But that stopped. That stopped at some point. As you said, they stopped talking about Scientology and so on.
So do you think the government had some order that said we're going to shut up about this and no longer talk about it? Because it seems that they did try and completely cover up remote viewing.
Yeah, they didn't want the Russians to get hold of it. I mean, the Russians were ahead in the psychic warfare at that point. They had proven already they could get psychic media to do remote spying and so on, and get some reliable results. So they were paranoid about it. So they didn't want as a public thing that they were talked about. They wanted a secret project, basically.
I find it interesting that Ingo Swann went crazy on solo knots. Is that what you said?
No, not solo knots, just knots, just OT5. That's before you do it solo.
Hold on a second. I thought he had already done OT5.
No, that was the old one. He did the old OT levels, up to OT7.
Okay, so you're saying in 78 they released new OT levels?
Yeah, but at that point it was not called OT5. At that point it was called NOTS. Just NOTS, which was developed with David Mayo and LH together.
Okay, so
That was later to become new OT5, but at that point, it just called it NOTS.
Well, what do you think of that tech, that whatever it was called, NOTS, that was released in '78? Then, do you think that's good tech?
Yeah, I mean that was the one I did at AOS8. That's the one called OT5 now. Yeah, I mean it is to some degree. It can do something, yeah. But I mean, a lot of it was just like nothing really happened. But in a couple of sessions, something happened. So yeah, it can.
But it's interesting because Ronzorg talk about they've got some extra data that can help people on these OT levels and stuff. So do you think that whatever was released in '78, it just wasn't quite complete?
I can't say. I mean, it's for sure none of the people doing it is ever getting through that so-called wall of fire, because that tech just can't do that. It just can't do it. But whether it was complete or not, I mean, I think they overdid it. I mean, with knots and solar knots and so on. They were so much into this whole thing that it went like it became like what do you say? Obsession for Hubbard. I mean, he ended up being totally paranoid about this, screaming and shouting and so on. It was total obsession, and I think they ordered it and did too much out of it. Basically, it's the same thing. I mean, OT3, OT5, OT7, the whole nuts and solar nuts. In Ronzorg, they call it Excalibur. Basically, it's all the same thing, work from different angles with different techniques and so on. I think they're totally overdoing it, but that's just my opinion.
Hold on. Now, at Ronzorg, do you go and do OT1, 2, 3, and then Excalibur, or what?
Oh, do I remember that? I don't remember it, Andy, because I was already at that point OT5, so I went straight into Excalibur.
Okay, so
which is called OT8 in Ronzorg, I'm sure.
Okay, so do you?
I think you do it straight after OT3.
When you went to do it, when you did Excalibur, did it fix up the issues about half an hour ago that you were talking about on OT5 that you said, where you go, yeah, everyone has problems in OT5 and stuff. Did it fix up those problems for you?
Yeah, to some degree, yes, but it became too much. They overdo it as well. Yes, it did very quickly. 1 or 2 sessions, bing, 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 everything was fine, and then that should have been it basically. But we carried on and did solo and did all kind of stuff and so on. But it was just an overrun, totally overrun. But I think they do that as well as the church.
But I was under the impression that Ronzorg actually do this is OT5 or OT7 or whatever, where people get bogged on in the church. Ronzorg actually do it in a reasonable amount of time, like a year and a half or something, not like 10 years. So
no, you're right.
So you're saying that even though Ronzorg's doing it way shorter than other people, you still reckon that's going for too long?
Yes, definitely, absolutely.
Okay.
But in the church, it's just totally ridiculous. I mean, they'll do it for 20 years and they will never get through it anyway, because you can't. So you're not supposed to. So it's like.
Now hold on a second.
So, yes.
Without talking too much about confidential material, so you do something until you get the EP. Are you basically saying people just don't get the EP?
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about it.
But
they do not.
But at the Ronzorg, people are actually getting the EP.
No, neither in Ronzorg, no.
Then how come they're only doing it for a year and a half in Ronzorg? Shouldn't they be doing it forever as well?
No, they do it. I mean, even when it came out, it was not even supposed to be an OT level. It was just supposed to be a remedy. Now it's made into an OT level, but it was supposed to be a remedy, and I think it should have been kept that way, I think. But I mean, it's better doing it in 1.5 years than fighting with it for 15 years, for sure, of course.
No, but hold on a second. So, did you actually complete this action at Ronzorg?
Yeah.
So, how did you attest to something without getting the EP?
because I knew I wouldn't get the EP. And I told them exactly what was on and so on. And they said, well, fine, that's it. You have done too much of it already. I was into an overrun, basically.
So you didn't, it's kind of like when you go clear and they go, oh, you got to go the alternate route because you can't go clear. It's like you tried to do this thing, you put in a decent amount of time, and then they said, oh, well, we're going to move you off that. You didn't get the EP, but you need to do something else.
Nah, it's not that. It's not that, because the EP can, what is an EP? At some point, it's also a matter of interpreting what is actually going on. What is actual case? What is case that you pull in because you start running something that is not there?
Well,
and then you pull in case, and then
you
pull in new case and blow it, and pull in new case and blow it. Like, what's the point?
Well, do you think that the CS looked at your case and said, this guy's actually got the EP, he just doesn't even know, and then she said you're done on the level?
Yes, I mean that was how it turned out. I mean, so it was just like I was already in turn overrun at that point.
So you probably got the EP then.
It depends how you interpret the EP. I mean, Hubbard said that EP of OT7 or 5 or even OT3, he kept repeating that EP being course over life. How do a CS determine whether you're course over life?
I know. I ran into these.
So what is an EP?
I know. You run into these things.
It's necessarily something very easily defined.
Yeah, you run into them on the lower levels as well, stuff like that. Because you say, anyway, it's just funny. But I know that's why I think Scientology is very careful. I think you need really intelligent people applying it, and yeah. So then what happened? So you sent out this which is in your book, and then everyone read it. And so that at that point, did you put your name on the and everything?
Yes. At that point, I was clear to go. I had my wife on my side. I had these 3 other friends and their wives. So we knew it's now or never. And we even got some more guys into our circle. So I wrote my booklet, sent it out physically to about a couple of hundred of Scientologists, of whom I had their physical address. And it exploded totally. I mean, and OSA issued an order to all Scientologists to deliver the envelope to the OSA office in the org, unopened, as a proof that the people hadn't read it. It was an order.
Wow.
They were terrified. And then the next week, my brother-in-law also wrote, I don't think that was 23 pages, but maybe 15 pages, report that he sent out to the same people. And then the week after, we had another guy who was class 7.
Can you say that again? What did you just say? What did you just say then? I missed out on that, sorry.
Yeah, so I sent out my statement, right, in physical envelopes. A week after, my brother-in-law sent out his report. That was not 23 pages. I think there was 10 or 15 pages. He sent out physically to all the same Scientologists. Then a week after, again, we had another guy who was OT7 and class 6 or 7 auditor, who had his certificates cancelled at some point. No, he was OT8. He went to the ship and did OT8. He was also disaffected. We had him included also. So we became a strong little group of high-standing Scientologists. He also wrote a report about it and sent out. So now we just bumped these people with envelopes with reports in from high-standing OTs, So the church, the OSA, was totally terrified by this attack. So they ordered all Scientologists who get letters from me, Klaus, or Eric, they ordered them to deliver the envelopes unopened to the OSA office physically, as a proof that they hadn't read our reports. And if you couldn't do that, would be an ethics matter.
Now, hold on a second.
Everybody had to go and deliver their envelopes and I knew that. The reason I know it is because at the school, the Scientology school where my daughter was going into to the fourth grade, one of the teachers there, all of the teachers were Scientologists, but one of them left together with us, and he told us what happened at the teacher's office, that they were all called in to a special meeting and told about these reports coming from Robert, Klaus, and Eric, and were told that OSA had issued an order that every Scientologist should deliver the envelopes that they got to the OSA office physically, unopened, as a proof that they hadn't been read. That was how terrified they was.
So do you think they sent out a comm to all this Scientologists, and would they even have sent it to people who were like on objectives level processing?
Probably not, but they
was it to upstanding citizens? Was it like to top OTs that they sent out this letter to, saying, hey, you've got to hand in this letter you received?
I don't think they sent out a letter. I think they made the order through ambassadors, through prominent Scientologists, telling all in their circles, you know. And would be calling around on the phone, asking people did you get a letter? Yes or no? Okay, you need to deliver it in here unopened so we can see that you haven't read it, kind of thing. So they were working overtime, I'm telling you.
Yeah, they're in damage control.
Yeah, definitely. Big times.
So when you put out this letter, did they call you straight away and say, hey, what's going on?
No, at that point they had given up on me. They called my wife and tried to make her divorce from me.
Now hold on, had you delivered the R factor to your wife about what's going on in the church?
Yeah. Before we sent out the statement, I also published my website. That was all in the beginning of 2004. Yeah, at that point, of course I had, and I had her on my side.
Did she? No, hold on. This is a really interesting thing, because this is problems that people probably run into. Like, how the hell do you talk to a family member about this sort of stuff? So, I mean, what did your wife? Is she gullible? Did she just go okay, or like how did you have to like present it like all this information? Go look at this, and like how do you do that? That's a big thing to do.
It is, and it was also I was very much in doubt myself how to handle that thing, because I started just to share a few things with her, like just to feel how she would take it, and she went straight into attack. I mean, she just said, "What's up with you? What are you doing? Why are you not trusting management? What is your problem? What's your overwatch?" Like total attack mode, like she has learned. I mean, we all learned that in Scientology. That's how to handle these things. And she did, and I took it very light and easy and said, "No, there's no big things. I'm puzzled by this. It's totally different information from what we got from management. I mean, what is this all about? And I just want to know. I mean, it's not more than that. I just want to know what's actually going on." And at some point, we discussed it for maybe a couple of hours. I told her about the Portland case that we actually didn't win it. I told her about other stuff, and also because when I had this my situation where I was imprisoned and I was interrogated and so on, she broke down on that. I mean, she was at that time she was almost on the way out of Scientology.
Now hold on a second. So years earlier, when you told her about the interrogation, she was. Is that what you're talking about? She was almost about to leave.
She was almost because they came to our house all the time. They brought me in and they interrupted. I mean, they were really terrible, and they even went while they had me. They had me contained in the org for my interrogations. They had two younger SEAL members come to our home and knock the door, and in a very friendly manner, very quiet and friendly, said that's something that they need to tell her, that her husband Robert Dam has confessed to being with prostitutes when he has been traveling around on his business. So they even came and lied to try to put...
Now, hold on. Back then, did she believe that?
No, she didn't believe it. And she was shocked by these people coming, telling things like that.
So she already is aware that they're willing to do stuff like lie. Was it an OSA worker who said that? Lie?
No, I don't know. They were not OSA. It was just young. There was a guy and a girl. maybe 20, 22 years old, young sea officers in full uniform.
Okay. All right.
Come and said that they had to tell her that I had confessed being with prostitutes. So she knew that these guys could do crazy things when they were desperate enough. So at that point, she was almost willing to leave the whole thing. She said, "What the fuck is this? What is going on?" and so on.
Yeah.
And when I came back from flag telling her that the whole thing was my mistake and it was my wrongdoing, she almost broke down and she could not have it. That her husband was taking responsibility for their complete crazy dramatization. She simply couldn't have it.
So she was already aware that there was something wrong before you've even started to talk to her about this. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I brought that back in memory and said, remember, 6 years back, you remember what happened. So there is something here we don't like this, and I just want to know what it is, you know. But after we discussed it for a couple of hours, and my wife started crying, and then she said she didn't want to hear any more of this. Whatever I had found out, whatever I was into, she just did not want to be a part of it. She was happily doing her academy levels. She was hanging out with all her friends in New York. That was her life. She just couldn't have this. So she just said, "You keep it to yourself. I don't know what your reasons are. I don't know what you're into. I don't know what you're up to. I just want nothing to do with it." And that was where we left it for a month, I think, or so. And at some point, she said to me that she wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt and talk about it and hear what I had to say. And then she took a day off work, and I took a day off work, and we sat the whole day and just spoke. And I told her about all my research and all the people I found out in Europe and this and that and all the evidence and how it linked to the experiences we had ourselves with our family. And this she started seeing the same picture of that total gangster organization, you know. And she started her own quest, kind of, because she had seen something on the Golden Age of Tech in the org that was totally crazy. I mean, the way they handle the e-metering course, you know, they go into nanoseconds, whether it's an instant or a latent read, and people break down. And so she started also asking questions about that. And so soon after that, she became convinced that what I was saying was right, and she started working with me.
And then did you say, "Hey, can I send out this letter to everyone and become public?" That basically come out of the closet?
Yeah, I wanted to do that. And we were not happy. We were frightened like hell. I mean, we don't know whether they would shoot me or what. I mean, we had no clue whether they would from the intimate level, they just say, well, it's just some nobody from Denmark, never mind about him. Or if they would go crazy and make me silent. We were totally paranoid. We were totally frightened that they would actually come and liquidate me. Crazy, but you know, thoughts starting accelerating, and you know that you are against a very powerful enemy. But anyway, we decided that it was best to be loud about it, to be very loud, and so we did. And of course, several of my wife's friends would they contacted her and say that they need to have a chat. They had all been ordered by OSA to do it. Of course, OSA would know who my wife's best friends were, you know, and they asked them to take a talk with her in order to make her realize that I was into something really bad and that she needed to disconnect and divorce from me ASAP. But fortunately, they couldn't convince her. But she then said, well, okay, OSA is behind this. That's obvious, because all these friends just is calling me at almost the same time. So basically, that's where we got out of Scientology in the spring of 2004, and we moved house. We moved our children out of the school. We started a new life, basically. And at that point, we were also still in Runsorg, and my wife was doing Excalibur. I was doing Excalibur, and basically that's where the whole church thing ended.
And has there still been any problems with the OSA or anything, or no?
No, I mean, what happened then was that a couple of years, when they lost us, they kind of lost us, and they wanted to do damage control and get everybody to disconnect from us, and they did. But still, there was quite a lot of people who read my report, who connected, and they wrote back to me. Even one guy sent me money to support my research because he was so happy. And many people started writing me emails saying, Robert, that's well done. It's totally true. I mean, nice that somebody there's talking about it. And we even had a after church get together at my new house. We call it after church party, like the guys skiing. They have an after ski party when they come home, you know. So we call it after church party, just to name it something funny. And we invited people at our new house. This was in 2005, the summer 2005, and I think about 70 people show up here.
Wow. That's a lot.
Because there's not so many Scientologists in Denmark. I mean, active Scientologists, maximum 700.
Now, were they...
10% of them showed up at our house to this party. It was quite nice.
Were they actually people who you'd woken up and gotten out of the church?
Yeah.
Wow. So the little network thing that you did wake up a lot of people, and you got them out when you were leaving. You left in like a big bunch.
Yeah, exactly. It was quite crazy actually. But we felt the need, because of so many people contacting us and start talking in them, and that they kind of woke up, you know. So what the hell? I mean, this is true. This is right. So we felt the need of actually making a little get together.
I think it was about time as well, because the GAT1 had been out for years, and so it's like all the evidence was in, and the internet had really started taking off. So it was like, yeah, you could see that, you know, that the dodginess was going on. So did when you were writing the book and releasing it, did you get any heat from OSA?
On the book, I mean, at that point they stayed away from us. They have disconnected us. They didn't want to mention us. They basically want to forget all about that we ever existed, right? So when I wrote my book, of course, the press, because I was invited into talk shows and a lot of newspapers interviewed me, and that book actually got a lot of attention from the press. And one of the TV channels, they had me in for an interview, and they, of course, called to OSA, to Scientology, and they got a hold of Annette Raftrup. She's a spokeswoman. And she said, of course, that I had a criminal record, and I was just, and I was trying to blackmail. I demanded $800,000, that's the same as $150,000 for not publishing my book, she said. So basically trying to ruin my credibility, of course, to make me a bad guy, blackmailing and so on. But I mean, so that was the type of thing she would do with the press. She would not anymore attack me or try to intimidate me, because I had been in all the big newspapers, almost all the big newspapers, the big talk shows in Denmark, even in Sweden. I went even to Sweden to do talk shows. So they feared, of course, that if they did anything bad to us, they would get on the front page the next day. So they were terrified. They wanted to stay the hell away from us, not to get another bad press. You know what I mean?
They didn't want to annoy you, so that you go on the TV all upset, saying, "Look what Scientology did to me."
Exactly, because that was the whole thing was going on there with my book and talk show appearances and so on. So if they started to intimidate, to do something, they would fear that it would go on the next day's front page. I mean, these papers always looked for something sensational to write, and just in that period, everybody wrote about Scientology because of my book and so on. So they stand back, they lay low, you know, to not get as a kind of damage control. They try to just not do anything. But of course, when they were contacted directly by the press, she would say, well, Robert has a criminal record. Robert has tried to blackmail. Robert this, Robert that. Of course. So that was basically what they did. So we didn't get any more trouble after that.
I'm just interested in how the mainstream media handle the subject of Scientology. I'm pretty sure there are certain subjects where they cover things up and they intentionally don't report on at all. But when it comes to Scientology, is it just like, I mean, how did you get in the mainstream media, and how easy was it?
It was easy, but it was not me. It was my publishing house. They want the book to sell, of course. So they do promotion. So they try to get reviews in the press, and then the press find out, oh, there's a book coming out about Scientology. That's exciting. Let's talk to this guy, you know. And they also arranged talk shows with the television channels and so on. So it's basically through my publisher that I got all this attention. They just wanted, this is a business. They just wanted the book to sell, of course.
Yeah,
but the thing is that I was surprised by all the reporters I spoke to, and there was quite many. They would do quite a thorough. I mean, they would be on my side because Scientology is easy to hate, but they wouldn't take my statements for granted. They would always try to find out whether it's true or not. They did quite a good job, I think, trying to see. Okay, that's what Robert says, but they kept saying, this is what Robert says, this is Robert's story. And they tried to speak to the church and to other places to see if they could counter my statements. So I think they did as they should do, even though they were basically more or less on my side, because I'm the small guy being abused by the big bad system. You know, that's the theme. So, but I think they did a quite fair job, and they didn't just buy it because I said it, you know what I mean?
I think from Oster's point of view, they clearly haven't ever been able to get in control of the mainstream media, because, I mean, that's a really big thing. And someone like Big Pharma might be able to get in control of that, but that's because they've got so much money to fund it. But it's just funny, because you could have written a story about working with UFOs or something like that, and you wouldn't get the media coverage.
Right.
I mean, like if you were abused by the CIA or something like that, like you just wouldn't get the media coverage. They just would not allow you to go in the media, and no one would know about it. So it's kind of like, I mean, I know like people don't know anything about this sort of stuff. It's like they think Scientology is bad, but it's just there's other stuff going on in the world that they have no idea about. It's because their intelligence department is doing a fantastic job in stopping the truth. I mean, the reason we know about OSO is because they do such a shit job.
Yeah,
you know
correct,
what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm sure they have done successful things as well, because I remember I heard something like Chris Shelton was criticizing OSA and stuff, and I'm like thinking, well, Chris, I mean, you don't know about the sneaky successful things that they have done, and because you're never going to find out about them. They could have actually done heaps of successful things.
Yes, correct.
But a really successful intelligence operation, you just never know it happened.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So what happened with Ronzorg? Did you keep on doing Excalibur? Did you finish it?
Yeah, I finished Excalibur. My wife finished Excalibur. I went on to do the original OT7, the old one that Ingo Swan and Pat Price and these guys did. And then basically I left it at that, because that was not it was not for me. Basically, I had enough of the whole auditing idea, the whole thing. It was like the questions without saying what it was, but on the old OT7 or the original OT7, those processes and those questions, it was like it was not new to me. It was like this is not, it didn't do anything. So I just went through it very quickly, and I think halfway through I said, I quit. This is not, I just waste my time. I mean, all these cognitions I'm supposed to have, I had them already. I mean, it's nothing new. It's like, so I basically, then I started getting a headache. I had enough. I had enough of auditing. The whole idea of auditing and somebody asking these questions and me having to look and find an answer. You didn't like the whole.
You didn't like the.
I just overran on the whole process of auditing.
Yeah, you didn't like the introversion of it.
Exactly.
Were you interested in maybe gaining some of the abilities that Ingo Swan had though? Did that excite you and make you want to do those old O2 levels?
Yeah. That's why I pursued it. Of course, I wanted to do the processes he did and see to get the same abilities and so on. But it was not getting me anywhere. I could just feel it. I was just getting heavy in my head, getting headaches, feeling down. It's like I could just feel the whole thing was too much now. I had you might call it EP'd on the whole process of auditing, the whole idea thing.
Well, maybe
I
the
couldn't
whole
have anymore.
maybe the whole of Scientology.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you could take it two ways. You could say, well, you sort of were over it and moved on, or that you actually gotten all you can get out of it, and you gotten heaps of wins from it, or something. Do you think that? Or
I did get wins. I just felt I had enough, of the whole thing.
well,
So
maybe that's because you're done on it.
Yeah, I think it is. Then what I did, Andy, was I quit that. I'm still friends with the guys. And that's a good thing about the Runsock guys. You can do that and still be friends with them. I mean, that's not a problem. If it was the orc, I would have to be SP declared, right? But
now hold on a second. Why is if you don't want to get audited again? Why would you have to be SP declared?
Yeah, but the orc would do that to you. If you said that you quit, I mean, there's no way you can do that in Scientology, right?
Really? So, okay. So as an OT7, you couldn't say, look, I don't want to get audited again. I think I've EP'd Scientology. They would distance. I don't know if that SP declares.
That would be bad PR. They want everybody to continue and do everything that Miscavige says,
Yeah. They'll just ignore you and just let you be.
And if you start talking to others in that way,
then you'll get SP
they would shut you up.
Yeah, because they'll say you're ruining other people's OT levels and stuff.
Exactly. But anyway, in Runsock, these problems doesn't exist, fortunately. But then I quit that. And then basically, for the sake of the fun, I picked up on some of these remote viewing training drills you can do. There are several guys from that Stanford Research Institute (SRI) project back in the early 70s. This CIA-funded remote viewing project. There are several of these trainers or supervisors doing that who has made their own courses you can buy.
Now is one of them called Gerald O'Donnell?
Yeah, exactly. That's the guy. There's also another guy called David Morehouse.
And there's another one called hold on. Is David Morehouse from Australia?
Isn't he from California? I think he's from California.
And then there's a guy. Is Courtney Brown one of them, or is he's just another generation of remote viewers?
Not sure. But there are several of these guys who was actually in that Stanford project, and Gerald O'Donnell is one of them. So I actually got hold of his stuff. It's kind of meditation type of thing.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I got a fan sent it to me for free, which I was really lucky about. Because I think there might be $250 or something for all the
something like that. Yes. I have the whole thing on CD.
Yeah. And I think I've probably got the same one as you, because the one I've got is like it's not new quality. Like I don't know when it was recorded, but it sounds like it was recorded originally on tape and now it's been put on a CD. But
right.
So you've done that whole course, have you?
There's one called remote viewing and there's one called remote influencing.
Yeah. Have you done the whole remote viewing course?
No, I only done the remote viewing. I didn't do the whole thing. I did like until session 5 or 6 or something like that. And you know what? I got more OT wins from that than from the entire OT bridge in the church.
Now, hold on. The only thing I'm going to say is, what if you doing the bridge had enabled you to then do those remote viewing things?
Could be, Andy. I couldn't say.
Okay, yeah, but I imagine you spent so many hours on that e-meter doing things and stuff, and you were like, whoa, I'm getting way bigger wins in a much easier time or something, or...
Yeah, I mean the technology that these guys have, the remote viewing technology is just much better than the OT. I mean the Hubbard's OT tech is just it doesn't. I mean it just doesn't work. I mean it's bullshit basically. But whereas the remote viewing that's a genuine article. I mean they have some actual techniques that will do something to you. So at least that's my finding. Of course it's subjective. That's what I found.
No. It's good you're being honest. So, let me try and understand. Okay, my understanding of the OT levels is maybe the old OT levels, or one of the old OT levels, you actually exercise the ability to perceive things at a distance or something like that. But actually, what you're really doing is you're just getting rid of case and shitness. So if someone sits down and does these remote viewing CDs, that doesn't have much to do with case and shitness and getting clear and, you know, higher at the bridge. That just more has more to do with training you in the ability to just be able to perceive something in a distance. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, totally right. I agree.
Okay, so they're handling different things. One thing's making someone psychic, and the other thing is making someone freer, and then by luck they can get some psychic abilities from that. Would you agree?
I agree. But the whole thing, the whole PR, the whole sales point of OT, operating Thetan, that is to become psychic. That's the whole thing they sell it on. That's why they call it OT. But they don't do it. I mean, they just get you into all this kind of case, which is basically LH's own case, and keep running it for 20 years until you go fucking crazy. You know, people do go crazy on it. I mean, it's amazing how many suicides there are amongst OT7s. It's totally crazy.
Isn't there
people
some
get
idea
cancer, people get sick, people get this and that. It is a complete dramatization, and it doesn't make you OT. It makes you sick. Or in the best case, crazy.
Now, hold on. What if that's because the person who's applying the materials isn't that good at executing it, doesn't have a real full understanding of what they're doing, and probably because Hubbard is bad at describing things, because, I mean, that is pretty well known for that. Like, you have to read things 4 times and be like, what the hell does he mean by that? But, like, do you think it's because some people it seems to work good on, other people it doesn't. So do you think it's because some people are more intelligent and are more able to duplicate and work out what's going on case-wise and can get better results, and other people are like slower and they need to be told exactly how to do it and they just can't do it?
That will always be the case in anything you do. Somebody picks it up faster, somebody doesn't, somebody understands it better. But the whole thing, my whole argument is that where are the OTs? None of them become OT. You know, I have spoken to so many from the church. I mean, who are now out, who've done OT 6 and 7 and 8. None of them are OT. I did the same in Runtalk. I asked these guys in Runtalk. They go to OT. They go up to OT 48. I think their bridge goes to OT 48. I've spoken to several of those. They are not OT.
And when you say OT, you mean
the product is not there.
You're saying they don't have these fancy psychic abilities.
Exactly. Which is the whole point.
Now, what do they say about their wins though? Their case wins and that sort of stuff. Like, do they say, yeah, I'm a whole new being, I'm awesome, I can be at more cause, and do they have good signs like that?
Yeah, of course. But you see, it's what you believe you become, you know. And if you spend 20 years or 30 years of your life going in one certain direction, it's not nice to recognize that it was a wrong direction. You basically wasted your entire life doing something that didn't work. It's not an easy recognition to get to. Even for me, after 20 years in Scientology, recognizing that I have been cheated by a math organization. And, you know, that's not an easy recognition. You have basically wasted your life. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. It's not that easy. So if you invest a lot of money or time or effort into a certain thing, you also basically want it to be a success. Okay? And when it's a matter of evaluating your own case, it's totally subjective. You can basically what do you call it when you suggest something to yourself? You can convince yourself of anything. I just got a raise on my job. It's because I did the OT level, or I got healed from my coughing or my whatever influenza or whatever. it's because I just did a review on my OT levels. Then that's why I got healed. You can interpret anything in your life and make it point in a certain direction if you want. And if you have invested a lot of your life, a lot of your money, a lot of your time and so on into a certain thing like the OT levels, then you also want the OT levels to be a success. So you interpret all good things that happens, and you say this is because of my OT levels. You know what I mean? So it's a very, very difficult area to actually have any kind of fact from, because it's not fact, it's subjective. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're talking about. I mean, like I plan on going up and doing it all. Just because I'm interested in seeing what it's like, and I expect that I will get case gains and it'll be an interesting experience. But I don't expect that once I complete OT5 or once I complete Excalibur, I'll suddenly have a magical psychic ability. I mean, if I wanted that, I know that I can go to Courtney Brown's Farsight Institute with remote viewing and dedicate probably 2 years of my life doing it as much as possible and give it a real good go, and I could develop the abilities that they have at that Farsight Institute, and it's amazing, and they really do have it. Have you seen some of the videos they've made, the Farsight Institute?
What is it called?
Courtney Brown's Farsight Institute. They've made...
Farsight?
Yeah, Farsight, like, you know, remote viewing, Farsight Institute. They've made little movies of their remote viewing projects, and they put their best remote viewers on it, and they'll do stuff like they'll remote view Mars, and they'll remote view Jesus and Hitler and stuff, and the data they come back with is fascinating, and it like confirms so much of other research and stuff. And they're very accurate. And I know that...
is that farsight.org?
Yeah, FARSIGHT.
.org.
Yeah, farsight.org. And in fact, hold on, I got to ask you more about the Gerald O'Donnell stuff. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if I want these fancy psychic abilities, I mean, that's what I'll be doing. I wouldn't do Scientology. I'll stop it right now, and I'll just dedicate myself to doing these remote viewing things. But I think it's more of a cool trick sort of thing, and I do absolutely want to have that ability, and I think it's important for survival, but I'm not too concerned about it. It's the same as the moving objects with my mind and stuff. I know I could sit down and focus on that heaps and heaps and heaps and get orgone crystals around me and all that sort of shit, and it literally helps your mind to manifest stuff in reality. It's really interesting. But it's like, I'm not too concerned about that. But anyway, I mean, I do want to do it. I mean, that's why I'm actually doing the Gerald O'Donnell stuff now. But anyway, like I don't like the idea of people shit canning it all just because some OT7 can't remote view. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you should actually go and see. There are, I think it's on Mike Render's blog. I think they have made some kind of statistics on the amount of suicides amongst OT7.
Oh yeah, no, that's a whole nother issue. Yeah, I definitely do.
So it's not shit canning. It's just like what is actually going on. What happens with these guys? I mean, they go crazy.
No. Yeah, I totally agree, because I also noticed that was one thing I was looking into. I thought, okay, so OTs are going bad, and that makes sense because the tech got screwed by the church. But then I found out that no, there was problems with OTs in the 70s prior to all the screwing happening. And I thought, that's interesting. And I thought maybe it's people not executing things correctly, or people not doing their grades right and getting skipped up and doing it wrong. I mean, all I know is that when I was on objectives, I saw people delivering book and bottle and SOP 8C, and I felt like I really understood those processes as an auditor. And I just saw people just delivering them wrong and just not getting the idea of those processes. And some people would come along and do, book and bottle and do it in maybe 2 hours or 20 minutes, and I'd just be like, nah. If I'm that auditor, if I was auditing that guy, I would not allow that person to pass that process. Like, as in, I could see how this is interesting tech, it's intelligent tech, and I could see how people could really fuck up the application of it. And in fact, it would actually be most normal that things are done incorrectly. I would expect that on average, it's more likely people would fuck things up than anything.
But the thing is that they have tried to make it into rocket science. For instance, I mean, and I think you can use, like Dianetics, nice process, and you can use it for some kind. You cannot go clear on it, because you can't go clear. So that's as simple as that. Nobody have ever reached that stage, at least not with Scientology or Dianetics. But you can use it to handle depression or phobia or something. I've read such a nice story with a guy. He was not a Scientologist. He was more like a Buddhist, but he was not practicing anything. But he had his nephew was wetting his bed, and he read the Dianetics book just out of interest. He's never been in touch with any Scientology, never done anything in Scientology in his life. But he read the Dianetics book, so I will try to use that process on his nephew because he was wetting his bed. So he did run him on Dianetics. He never trained, he just read the book, so it's not that difficult. So he ran him on Dianetics, and he found back to an engram where the nephew had called his dog. That was on the other side of the road. He called the dog. The dog came running towards him and get hit by a car and killed because he called it. Okay, and since then he's been wetting his bed. So they ran that engram with Dianetics, and bingo, he was not wetting his bed anymore, and he was happy again. Just running that incident.
Yeah.
So that you can use it for. It's extremely effective, and probably this nephew should never have any more Dianetics because he will never go clear anyway because it's bullshit. But it can be used for these things, and the same is with other Scientology processes. You can use them for a specific thing, but don't ever expect to reach all the stages that Hubbard explains. He explains to reach OT, to reach clear, to reach grade 4 release, grade 2 release, communication release. All this is all utter crap because you can't attest to anything like that. It's crazy. But you can use it for a specific problem you have in your life. So it's quick in and out. Use it for that, and then that's it.
Well, I think the results you get are talked up by the sales people and stuff, and Hubbard talked them up as well, and that they're not quite accurate. But yeah, you can still get wins from it and stuff. It's just not really as good as what you hear.
But a win is something. To attain a state is something else. Like to attain clear, it's not a win. To attain clear is to become a new person and be in a different state of awareness and beingness. Well, and that's basically what that's where the whole thing goes wrong.
Well, I was working for a guy who was doing the grades and stuff and working his way through to clear, and he wasn't one of these people that said he was a past life, blah, 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 and got to skip things. He did proper. He did his Purif. He got into it in like 2008. He did his Purif, he did his objectives, and he didn't just do them quick. He did a decent amount of hours on them. He then did each of the grades and did a decent amount of intensives on them, and he actually worked his way through them. And I saw him change and stuff, and he was a different person by the end of grade 4, and then when he ended up going clear, he was more uptone, and he said to me he feels 1,000,000 times better, and to me he was clear. Now, he didn't have that total recall thing, because I think that's a little bit twisted or whatever, but I mean, he had he was clear, you know, so what are you saying? What happened to this guy?
It depends what you think clear is. If you read what Hubbard writes about clear in the book Dianetics, he's not in two minds about it. I mean, it's very obvious what he says clear is.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with. I mean,
simple questions and find out that he's not clear.
Yeah.
Wins, yes, but that's a different thing. Getting a win is something different from attaining a certain state.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a point of, like, you know, it says like you're gonna be able to, you know, I guess remember anything, and then it's like it's exaggerated basically, but it doesn't mean that clear doesn't exist. And
Well, then it means that the clear is something else. Then what is it? If it's not what it says in the book and in the bulletins, if it's something else, what is it then? Nobody can explain. Nobody can define it.
I think it's American macho exaggeration. For example, it's kind of like Alex Jones. So, like, I don't like when you listen to some of this stuff. He says some really crazy out there stuff, but it's not like he's lying. It's like he's right, but he's just the words he's choosing to use and the way he's presenting it is so overblown and exaggerated. It makes it really entertaining, but he's not directly lying. And I feel like with each of the EPs that you achieve in certain processes and grades and clear and that sort of stuff, they're not direct lies, but they are. I don't know if it's some American thing, but they are overblown salesman talk of those achievements. Like, for example, like what's it? Like I've done, I think is a grade 1 where you have a problems release or grade 3 or something. I've done that, and yeah, I was released. I feel I have actually achieved the state. Looking on it years now after, I have I have achieved that. It's not like I never have any problems, but it's like problems aren't really a problem for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but
it depends. It depends what problems you run into, Andy. You can run into an entirely new level of problems, and then they become all of a sudden problems to you. Anything can happen in life. So, but it's fine. And the whole thing is, if you're satisfied, good for you. That is good for you, but you cannot define it as a state, because you say, as you're just saying to me now, I think, I feel, I this, I that. It's totally subjective. You cannot define it as a state. You know what I mean? Because it's something you feel right now. Then you go to examiner and attest to it. But,
that's also
the OT. LIH are very clear about what OT is. He writes it in the History of Man. He writes it many different places. What is OT? And you go out there and you ask, and you'll find out there is no single OT ever produced on the OT levels. And that was the whole idea of the OT levels. That was to produce OTs.
Yeah,
they bragged about Ingo Swan and Pat Price. They developed their own techniques. It was not because they had done OT levels in the church. They developed their own techniques how to do. I read this book by Ingo Swan where he writes about it. They started developing their own techniques to draw instead of to speak with words. They did different things before they started getting any results at all. So there are no clears according to the definition of clear. You can say you think it's something else. Then we are subjective again. What do you think it is? It could be anything then. If it's up to every single individual member to think whatever they feel clear is, then it's not a defined state anymore. Then it's a subjective idea. So there are no clears according to the Hopper's definition of clear. There are no OTs according to Hopper's definition of OT. So there are no results. And Hopper always says the only thing that counts are results. Okay, there are no results. There are not one single product which is clear or OT and can be verified as such. And that's why I say use Scientology for what it's good for, as a tool to fix a nephew wetting his bed, or a depression, or a phobia, or whatever problem with your boss, or whatever. Use it for that, because there are so many good tools. But you never attain the status, which is the whole idea of Scientology, to become a different person and attain a certain predefined state. There are no results, Andy. They are not there.
Well, hold on. I think it's a matter of the EPs being exaggerated, the results being talked up by salesmen and being exaggerated, because
not by salesmen, by Hubbard.
Well, the whole time he was selling Scientology to people, the whole time. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything. I'm saying it's good, to be honest. But like, I think that he did step a little bit over the edge in his salesman talk and stuff. But anyway, but some people, it's just their personality. Like, you can see in Alex Jones, I mean, he's just this wild excitement ball of energy, big, bold American. And according to Americans, we got the biggest car, man. We got the biggest steak in Texas. It's just their whole personality. It's their whole being. America's the greatest, or something like that. It's just the whole thing.
It's a matter of culture.
Yeah, and it's not like he's directly lying to people, but. No. I mean, with me, when it comes to problems, for example, seriously, because I know that there are a lot of things where people come to me and they'll have a problem and they'll say, like, as in they'll say it's my problem, and I'll go, that's not a problem, or like, I wouldn't view it as a problem. And I'll go along and I'll be like, I feel like I don't make things into problems, and I feel like I have achieved the EP of grade 1 or whatever. And
but that's good, Andy. That's a win, and that's when you are allowed to have. I had the same feeling when I did my grade 1. I had pretty much the same feeling. I have even better feeling when I did the grade 0, the communication. But I cannot honestly attest to that I will never ever again get in a position where I won't have difficulties with communication, where I won't be short of words, where I won't be able to confront something. You know, if it's a bloody alien standing in 2 inches ahead of me, will I be able to confront that thing? Will I be able to feel calm and relaxed, having a cheerful communication? Probably not. You know, so, but it's still a win, and I recognize it as a win. You know, you see where I'm heading. It's a difference from having a nice win like you had, like I had. Which can change your life. Yes, it can. But from there on, and to saying there are these stages you can attain. And that was what Hubbard did from the beginning, and he's always done that. And church is always doing that. Even in Run Talk, it's the same. But there are no products. They can't point to one specific, say, here we have a result, a product. They're just not there.
Yeah, I think the problems thing is interesting. Because when I tested to it at that time, it was kind of like, I don't know if I wasn't really certain I'd actually achieve that state, and it wasn't until after it that I sort of, when I got to live and do things in the real world, was I like, hold on a second, I am sort of got this state of like things not being a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I'll view things as a challenge, or like, it's not, you know, it's like, yeah, I know, it's all subjective and stuff. It's like, what do you define as a problem? And you could say a traffic jam's a problem. So that means that since I attested to that, have I gotten in a traffic jam before? And I have. So, you know, where do you draw a line? But as in, I do feel like my whole of my existence has moved into more funniness and lightheartedness, and things aren't so much a problem like the way they were for WOGs, where they're like, this is a problem, oh, you can't do this, and oh, you can't, it's a problem, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I know what I mean, yeah.
It's interesting. With the Gerald O'Donnell, what's it called? Avari, is it? It's called Avari, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Advanced Avari. What is it? How do you spell it?
Academy of
Viewing and Influencing Avari, or something like that.
Yeah, remote influencing. Academy of Remote Viewing and Remote Influencing, or something like that. Yeah.
So with these CDs, you've done the first 5 lessons of it, have you?
Yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
Have you tried any other remote viewing stuff?
No.
Do you know if what he's doing is the same as the other remote viewers? The lessons, the way they teach it and stuff?
I have the package from David Morehouse. I haven't done it yet, but I've read the introduction. It seems to be pretty much the same as Gary O'Donnell.
So it's all about getting you into like this altered state of mind, like this theta state of mind or something.
Yeah. I think that David Morehouse is, because they come from the same project, so I think it's basically more or less the same.
What wins did you get from it?
I got into this being almost weightless, like halfway exteriorized, and I started getting a lot of cognitions on anything. I would go and think of something, and I would get answers to my thoughts.
Interesting. That's almost like the ability to talk to God in prayer.
That was very much a feeling. That I would think about something, or somebody would come and ask me for something, and the answer would just come to me. Like, not necessarily from me, but they would come to me. It's just like,
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. Are you talking about when you weren't actually exercising it, just in everyday life?
I had done some of these sessions, and I've done them several times, and it just brought me to a state where I felt that I would get answers to any questions I had really about life.
No, but as in when you were actually practicing it, or are you saying when you were out walking the street or something?
Yeah, that was not when I was practicing, but it was just in daily life.
Oh, so you saying you got like an ability that you could use in everyday life?
And very much, yes.
Ah, so you're saying that you probably opened up a part of your mind or got into a theta state of mind where it stayed in and you could function with this ability.
Exactly, yes, correct, yeah.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. But, I mean, for me, it did way more than any OT level.
So it's like giving you intuition. So it's like making you psychic. So you could walk around. This is whatever psychic people, however they do it.
It's a good way to put it. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
They're naturally in this state of mind, and that's why when someone asks them about their pet cat or something, they can answer questions about it. But this gets you consciously exercising this state of mind, and so you can walk around and actually decide to go into it.
Yeah, it was quite amazing, and I never became really good at it, but it was so easy. I mean, whenever there was something, I would think about it, and an answer would come back. I don't know where from, but you know. And also like a little bit remote viewing, like my daughter lost her iPhone, and she just said, I can't find my phone, and I knew exactly where it was. As soon as she said it, I knew exactly where it was. I said, go there and look for it, and she went there. It was there. That kind of thing. It's also, you know, yes, I think it's a good way to put it. It gave me intuition, yeah.
Well, I've done the first 3 lessons, and I'm suspicious that because you've handled more of your case, that you can learn this ability faster, but I haven't really had that happen yet.
No, okay. How much have you done of it?
Well, each lesson I did about 3 or 4 times. I did it till I felt like I was sort of flat on it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one thing I did notice was it was hard. It really caught me by surprise because I was like, "Whoa, hold on a second. I thought this would be easy." But when I did it, it was really easy to just fall asleep, and it gets you to do things like, what does he say? Stuff like breathe out and breathe all your negativity out of you, or something like that. And I just found it was like actually going into session and actually executing things, and I found it was difficult. You know what I mean? I kind of thought it would be a walk in the park. I didn't realize it was like you're lying there, but you actually are exerting a lot of mental effort and stuff, and that's what made it hard. And I was yawning a bit as well. Did it make you yawn?
Yes, it did. Yeah, and sometimes I fell asleep as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was very hard. I mean, to me it was not very hard. But you're right. Sometimes it was a struggle to stay awake.
Well, I didn't realize I had to remain sessionable in order to do it, and I've also found that I've been avoiding doing it as well, which makes me think that it's one of those. You know, when you go to do a process and it's like actually the process that your case needs, and you feel like avoiding it or whatever. It's like hard to do. You're like, ugh. I noticed other people got that a lot on objectives. I didn't get it as much, but I've noticed that remote viewing has been like that for me, where it's like, oh my god, I have to go in there and do that. Oh, like it's hard, and you know.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't feel it so much with the remote viewing, but yes, you have to be sessionable. You have to be awake, having slept enough, and so on. Yeah, that's for sure.
And did you find that you would do it a few times and exercise a few times, and then you'd be flat on it, then you could move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, I've done each
one. I would like to do it again at some point, though, and do the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm working through it.
Nice.
What was I going to say? Did you notice something? This is something that I noticed that was really interesting, right? Did you notice when you were doing the exercise, the next day you go to do the exercise, it would sound different, like a little bit slightly different?
Haven't noticed.
Anyway, I have this really interesting case phenomena where I think I go into parallel universes that are slightly different, where things are like a little bit of a different color or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Mandela effect?
No.
Anyway, we'll look into it because it's really interesting. But it's possible that there's parallel universes, and I might have opened up some sort of ability to go into a parallel universe where things are slightly different. I don't notice until I see a wall painted a different color, and I'm like, hold on a second. I remember that wall used to be painted a different color, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed it when I started doing this remote viewing stuff, because I would listen to an exercise, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll listen to it the next day, and I'll be like, I do not remember him saying that on the yesterday's thingo. Or I'll listen to it and I'll be like, I remember it sounding just a little bit different. And I'll be like, what the hell? I'll be thinking, when I'm doing this remote viewing, am I actually going into it? Am I opening myself up to go into parallel universes or whatever? And then the next day going to another one where the tape was recorded a little bit slightly different and something. But I'm going to keep a note of it because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I've got a quote here from your book, and you said, actually, no, this is from your website. It says, Hubbard once said that it is a rough universe and only the tigers will make it, and even they have a hard time. This is very true, more true than I first thought when I read it. The chapter, My First-Hand Experiences with Top Management, will tell you why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly that. You got to be. Yeah, it's really tough. I think I agree with that when I read that as well by Hubbard. I was like, yeah, that's so true. You got to be totally tough. You got to really harden up. Like even every time you go into session, it's just. I mean, maybe session, but study. It's just like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's hard. It's not easy. I don't find it easy concentrating and clearing words and all that sort of stuff. You got to push yourself through it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
There's another quote. Scientology, well understood, is a very powerful thing. Poorly relayed, poorly communicated, monopolized, or used exclusively for gain, it could be a very destructive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's from LRH.
Mm-hmm.
But you must have had that on your website.
Yeah, probably I have quoted that. Could be, yeah.
Yeah, it's from the Anatomy of the Spirit of Man. Yeah, it's a good quote.
Yeah.
What's your best past life incident? Most interesting. And do you believe in past lives?
I did very much believe in it, yes. And, can I remember anything? Yeah, that's right. I ran once a kangaroo incident.
Really?
Where I was a kangaroo.
Whoa.
And I got electrified in these big cables hanging in the air. What do you call these?
Power lines?
The huge masts with electrical cables.
Street poles.
Yeah, these big ones that transport electricity or big distances.
The huge ones. Yeah, the huge. Yeah.
Yeah. I as a kangaroo, I got electrified while one of them was killed by one of these high current cables. That was an incident.
But those cables are up high in the sky.
They're high in the sky, yeah. But for some reason, as a kangaroo, I jumped into them and got electrified on the spot.
Whoa.
But that was a past life incident I ran in Dianetics, I think. But whether it was just a dub-in or whatever, I can't tell you. Probably they can't jump so high, it would never happen. But anyway, that was what I ran. I was quite fascinated after session, but probably it was just a dub-in.
And also it could have been the power lines got damaged in a storm or something. Maybe one of them was hanging down low and you're bouncing along and you banged into it.
My record was that I jumped into them. They were intact. I just jumped high enough and touched two of them at the same time.
So do you recall jumping 50 meters in the air?
I couldn't say how high it was. It was just high enough to get stuck into these two cables and get electrocuted.
So do you believe in past lives?
Not in that very square concept that you have in Scientology, that you are basically you, and then you go out of the body, and you are still you. I'm still Robert, I'm just in a new body. I don't believe it in such a square idea. I believe it's more like you're part of a whole, and you can be in a body or not, and you can take experiences to another life. You can take experiences from other people also. That be a kind of a common awareness, all of us, and we can be part of a physical existence or not. That you just are the same guy jumping from body to body to body, life after life. I don't believe in that.
I was going to say something. I had a good question. It was something good. Anyway, what's if someone wants to read your book, how can they get it?
It should be online, I think. It's on Amazon, and the English version is on Amazon.com.
And so you would search Robert Dam, the Defector?
Yes, let's just see. Yes, it's the first result. If you search Robert Dam, Amazon, Robert Dam Defector, then it's the first result that comes up on Google.
All right. What about, I'm just wrapping up the interview now, but what about the best win or coolest experience in session that you've had? Oh, that's it. I remember what I was going to ask. But anyway, answer that question.
Oh, let's see. I think my best win, to be honest, was my very first session ever, where I got Dianetics Book 1 session, and he ran an incident as a teenager. I was dumped by my girlfriend, and then I ran that as 20 years old. That was my first experience ever. And it took him a couple of hours to get down to that incident and to make me talk about it. And then I felt all the grief and everything. And he blew it just like that. And I had a cognition and I opened my eyes and I couldn't stop laughing. And when I went home that evening, I just almost flew home. I was totally enthused. I was full of energy, hope, self-confidence, and it changed a lot for me. So I think basically that's one of there are many great wins, but this must be the most significant.
Well, what about the most interesting experience from maybe a process turning something on, or just a funky OT experience or something?
The most interesting experience, that was when that was on OT3 review. I had some troubles on OT3. I got a review. And as I came out, I was sitting in the waiting area, the OT waiting area in Copenhagen, AOSH EU, and there was nobody. There was almost nobody there. I was just sitting there alone, waiting for my CS to come out and tell me whether to carry on solo or whether to get more review. And I was just sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden, I felt my wife coming into the room. And I just felt her, and I hugged her, and started talking to her, and she told me something, and it was just like, but she wasn't there.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this in the previous interview. Do you remember?
There was, I think you say there was most interesting experience I had on my OT limbs. I think because I might have mentioned it before. Yeah.
And she, when you went and saw her body after that, and did she confirm that incident actually happened?
No, she didn't.
So she didn't say she remembered speaking with you or something?
No, because we didn't speak. I just felt her. It was like speaking, but it was just like I felt her mood, and I told her about this, and that was all true. What she felt, what she was concerned about, and these kind of things.
But she didn't perceive you though.
Right? No, she didn't.
Okay, where was she on the bridge at this stage?
I think she was doing her grades.
Okay. That's interesting because I had a friend drop me off at the airport in a car recently, and I actually had an incident key in, or stimulate, when I went into that airport, because it was like a similar environment as to what happened 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a story to it, might as well just say it. But I went to the AO in Sydney and I got a bunch of sec checks. Well, I got a sec check, but there was dramas from it. I ended up spending a fair bit of money and staying longer than what I thought and being totally ARC broken and not being very happy with the trip at all. So when I rocked up to the airport in the evening when it was dark and it was a little bit quiet, I was really keyed in and I was really, really sad. Right, and then after that, I actually ended up leaving the church because I found out what was going on. But when I rocked up to the airport just recently, it was a really similar scenario. It was in the evening, and it was sort of dark, and it was sort of quiet, and it was the exact same spot in the airport. So the stimulators were all similar. So I went, "Whoa, I remember this place." You know what I mean? And then I felt sad. I felt the sadness of what I felt 3 years earlier. Anyway, what was really funny was I ended up telling my friend who gave me a lift to the airport the next day about something to do with the... I think I said something like, oh yeah, when I was there, I mentioned how I was so sad 3 years ago when I had that bad experience. And he goes, oh, I perceived that and stuff. And he was like, yeah, he was like, when I dropped you off, I just felt sad and all this sort of stuff. Like he could feel my case. When I walked through the doors of the airport, and he was like, "Yeah," he goes, I wasn't going to mention anything to you because I didn't think anything of it. I just drove off, but I just felt the sadness or something like that. So he could pick up on my case, and that's what reminds me a bit of the whole OT level auditing and all that sort of stuff, because you're picking up on other people's stuff that's going on.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was really interesting because he perceived what I and he also talks about other sort of exteriorization stuff, or perceiving or empathic perceiving other people's things that go on between him and his girlfriends that he has. Some funky, because he gets with girls that are like OT as well and stuff, if you know what I mean. He gets with funky spiritual girls, so he has funny stories he tells about that sort of stuff. But yeah, it seems interesting. But anyway, I'm just wondering, and this is probably one of the last questions I'll ask you. When you were doing your OT levels, do you believe you really were dealing with entities, and or do you think that was all just made up and bullshit?
No, I don't think it was all bullshit. I mean, this is something you deal with in many different religious connotations. It's like even Jesus was dealing with that. You can read in the Bible. So there's many different religious directions where you deal with this, even also spiritual directions where you deal with entities. So I think, to me, that's a very real thing. And I don't think it's bullshit or made up or anything like that.
Okay, but do you think you spent too much time dealing with them?
Absolutely. I mean, what's the whole? It's an obsession. It's a total obsession. I mean, dealing with it. What are you trying to learn? I mean, what are you trying to gain? It's like if you have a problem with it, then you need to deal with your own problem with it. You know what I mean? If you can't handle it, you can't have it, then you are in trouble. Then you must deal with that issue. It's like if you can't have that anybody else in the supermarket, then you need to deal with it. You cannot just scare every customer out of the supermarket, right? They are there. They're supposed to be there. So if you have a problem with them, then you need to solve that problem. And that's the same with entities. Instead of trying to sort out a million or a billion entities, they need to sort out what's your problem with them, and that's what you don't address at all. That's why I say it's a total obsession. So it's pointing in the total wrong direction. And you spend 25 years doing it, or in Runsorg you spend maybe 5 years doing it, or whatever.
So some people who are spending ages on it, it's just like, what's the point? I mean, they're always going to be there, and it's just like, what do they expect? They're expecting to get a point where they disappear, and it's just like, well, there's always going to be more, so why not, like, just get used to them, pretty much?
Yeah, sort out what is your issue with them. What is your problem with them? Find out what that is, because you will never going to sort them. I mean, it's like you have a problem with other people, so kill all of them, or get them all of them to fly to Mars. No, it's not going to work. So what is your problem with them? Why? What is your issue? You know what I mean? That should be the whole direction, the whole
EP.
You see what I mean?
So, do you think someone's EP'd it when they are no longer affected by the entities?
Once again, Andy?
Do you think that someone's EP'd one of these OT levels when they're no longer affected by the entities?
Yeah, when they can have the entities, when they can deal with it, when they have, like when you are a communication release, that's when you can be relaxed and be yourself in any communication and speak about anything without being stressed or pushed out of your space or whatever, you know? That's the same with entities.
But it's just that the EP actually doesn't say that, so people just keep on going.
It's not the way you're supposed to handle it and get rid of all of it.
So you're supposed to actually get rid of all of them. That's the EP, getting rid of them.
That's it. That's what Howard wanted to, and he couldn't do that himself. That's why he went totally paranoid. He was totally obsessed, trying to get rid of all these entities, and never managed.
Yeah, I do think
what is his problem? What is his problem in sorting out that instead? That would be much quicker.
Is there any moments where you actually almost have none of them, and you're like, oh, I've almost got the EP?
You can convince yourself, of course, but that's again very subjective. But you know, they can have a guy who did OT. He's been auditing for 15 years on OT7. Then they invent Golden Age of Tech, and they call him back, and he comes back and he gives it another 10 years. They never get through. I mean, you just never get through. I mean, the risk is that you go crazy and go totally paranoid and become totally crazy because you can't get through. And you just get more and more and more. You get more and more problems with it.
If Ronsorg are doing them in a short amount of time, what are they doing successfully that the other ones aren't doing? The church is doing. Like, what's the church doing wrong? Like, why are they staying on it forever?
Because they want to make money from people.
But what are they? What
they don't have any more levels. I mean, Miscavige doesn't have OT9 or 10 or anything. They don't have anything.
Yeah, I heard that.
He can't write. I mean, Miscavige is a businessman. He's not an author. He's not an artist. He can't write. He can't make it up himself. He don't know what to do. He has no clue about the whole thing. So what can he do? We can then revise the existing levels, put them into Golden Age of Tech or whatever, find out, and then tell the whole thing again. He can tell on OT7 that he was not anyway clear. Then he has to buy the whole bridge again. You know. So that's basically to make money.
No, but from a tech point of view, what are they actually doing wrong? Like, what's the difference exactly between the Ronsorg and the church they're doing it like? Like, is the church's EP just totally unattainable, like completely ridiculously unattainable, but the Ronsorg one is much more easy to attain?
Yeah, they take it more light and easy, and they don't force people into running something that people think it's enough. You know, they'll take your statement and say, okay, good, enough is enough. Whereas in the church, they just want to push you into buying more intensives, basically.
What if this whole entity thing is saving the Earth and is actually keying the whole Earth out, and people need to stay on it for 1,000,000 years so that we can get the whole place fixed up? Is that realistic in thinking, or
Not to me.
like
There's wrong with
what if there is
There's
a
nothing wrong
finite?
with it. There's only one thing wrong with this if you can't deal with it.
What if there is a finite number of entities and we can fix all these entities up?
But it isn't. What if it isn't like that?
Okay.
I mean, you're not supposed to handle anybody else. I mean, that's what, cause over life says it all. Howard felt life as a threatening thing. There was an enemy. He wanted to win over it. But you can't, life is your best friend. I mean, so why, you can never be cause over life. It's like cause over wife. Do you want to be cause over your wife? No thanks. You don't want that. You don't want to be cause over your best friend. You want to have it as a best friend and generate, be wise, become wise, learn about yourself, learn about life. It's your best friend, cause over life. I mean, that was because he was battling life. You want to be cause over your enemy, yes. You want to win over it. But that's the whole basic concept, that goes in my view, goes in the wrong direction. Fight enemies, fight suppressives, fight life. Fight anybody. And I mean, if anybody had enemies, it was Hubbard. He had so many enemies, you can't count them. Because he was fighting everybody. That was his life. It was a fight.
I met a girl recently, and I think she was on her T5 or something, and she looked so pure. And I think it's because she was clear of these entities and stuff. But she had this clearness about her. And it's probably what Jesus had or something. I mean, what if that person has actually achieved this EP of no longer being affected by entities?
Well, what can I say? That's fine. But no longer be affected by it. That's something entirely different than having
hold on. What if she's clear of these entities and that's why she looked, or I was perceiving spiritually something there? And I've noticed something with me as well. Psychics, particularly psychic women, they go a bit wild over me, and I think it. And I remember one time I went to get some psychic healing, and they were like, "Oh," at the end of it, she was like, "Oh, it was a privilege to spend some time with you. It felt so nice." I was like, well, so maybe like I'm very clear of these things. Do you know what I mean? And this other girl I was perceiving was very clear of these things. So,
but, I mean,
maybe...
Also, why wouldn't you be? I mean, the thing is, if you have a problem with other people, entities or other people, it doesn't matter. To me, it's the same thing. Whether it's an entity or whether it's a person with a body or whatever, it doesn't matter. Same thing. So let's say you have a problem with other people. So now you need to get rid of other people. No, you need to sort out what is your problem with other people. When you sort it out, you don't have a problem with other people anymore. It's the same with entities. So why couldn't you be at that state naturally without having to address it at all?
Well,
I don't see why that's not possible. Or you could attain it in one session. You could attain it in one session. You can attain it in maybe 10 years. You can spend half an hour.
What if
until you all of a sudden get that change of mind and say, oh, wow, that's no problem. I don't have a problem at all. I can have it all. I can give it love. I can learn from it. It's fine. Bingo. There you go.
Yeah. And what if...
Why not? Why couldn't it be like that?
Yeah, exactly. And what if this girl that I was perceiving, she really had cleared herself of entities?
Yeah, but yeah, she cannot clear herself. She can sort out her problems with entities.
No, what if she'd actually managed to clear herself of them? They're not in her area.
What area are they in then?
They're 20 meters. They're 50 meters away. They're 50 meters away. They're not in her radius.
Why is her radius 50 meters and not 500 kilometers?
Well, maybe she just made a postulate and just keeps them away. Like maybe her auric field...
maybe, yes, but you see, then you need to start defining a lot of other things. Why can't you say she just sorted out her issues with it? You know?
Well, you could
But
say...
the whole idea of having to remove it and get... How can you define her space? You can't.
What if she
You
got...
can define what's troubling her in her space. That you can define. And that you can do something about. All the rest you can't do anything about anyway.
What if she got in comm with the entities in her auric field, you could say? So I guess within an area of 2 meters around her or something, and she got in comm with them and keyed them out or whatever, and then they're gone, and they're literally not in her auric field, and she's just this walking ball of beauty.
Gone to where?
They're like to some other, like someone else, or they've gone to like another part of the room, far away.
Why is that better?
Because she doesn't have them messing with her, and she's not feeling sad because they're feeling sad.
But they could come back messing with her.
No. What if she's so uptoned they just stay away? Like basically, like a mosquito. You think of like a mosquito nest. What if she did the auditing and then it like made her magical and her postulate's really powerful, so that she has like this permanent mosquito nest around her, and she's just like Jesus walking around.
Mm. Then it's good for her.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's all very out there, and it's very esoteric, you know.
It is.
Anyway, I mean, you think about Chris Shelton and some of these skeptics and stuff, and they would just have a field day. Like they could not confront any of this, even thinking about it. They would just be like, "Whoa."
Mm.
I mean, a lot
I don't
of
know him so well, I must admit.
What's that?
I don't know Chris Shelton very well. I think I saw a YouTube video once or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw something recently where he was talking about ghosts and stuff, and he was saying how he's had some sort of experiences, but then he was very quick to pass them off with all those fancy terms like confirmation bias and all these silly like things and stuff, and it's just like, hey, ghosts exist, like get over it, you know. But anyway, it's interesting. Anyway, it's interesting. I mean, one day I guess I would find out when I try it. But I mean, I think if I do go in to try some of these OT levels, I'm pretty sure the whole clear thing's absolutely awesome. Like, it works. It can make you a bit more at cause and in a good shape and stuff. But above that, things do get a bit questionable. But I think I'll just try something. If I notice it's keying me in, then I'll be like, well, maybe I need to keep on going. But then there will be a point where if it just keeps on keying me in, I'll just say, no, I'm not coming out of this. This is just never ending, and I'll just stop it.
Yeah, exactly. You just need to keep your eyes and your antennas out. You need to keep your eyes open and be sensitive about it, because otherwise, all of a sudden, you're stuck in an overrun, and it's not getting you any better. Quite the opposite. So you need to be very much on the ball and sense it. If you sense when you're done, then you're done. Then don't carry on, because it'll just make you worse. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you can do that, and be entirely, totally honest to yourself, and you can feel now it's enough. Then enough is enough. Move out. Go to the next. That's important to do that, because otherwise you get into just overrunning it like mad for years, and you just risk ending up going crazy or going heavy and keying in or whatever, you know. So it's very important that you yourself feel where you're going, and when it's enough, then quit it right away.
And wouldn't someone want to just do fun things anyway and play other games? It's just like move on, you know.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, exactly.
I noticed that with objectives, it was almost easy to sort of overrun things, actually. Like accidentally, almost. It was like, you know, especially when a process was sort of boring, because like, you know how objectives can be boring at times, like just touching stuff in a room, and then you run something, and then you just sort of almost accidentally overrun it for a while because you're like, oh, I'm bored, and you're like, oh, it's not because I'm keyed in from the process, it's just because I'm the boredness isn't coming from the process. It's just because this is just a boring action we're actually doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I noticed me and my twin had a little bit of a problem with that. Anyway, all right. Thanks a lot for that interview. That was really interesting, and it was, I think, it was a little bit naughty, the OT stuff, but it just happened, and I think communicating about these things is what needs to happen. And I imagine there are a lot of people who are on these levels who can't talk about these sorts of things, and so they have a lot of confusion. So I think your opinions on them and stuff can really help them.
Good. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, that's my justification of the overt. I let the SP keep on talking, and I prodded in my pro.
Exactly.
But anyway,
all right.
Thanks for that. And,
most welcome.
What's that?
Yeah, you're most welcome.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, thanks a lot, because that was good. I mean, it was pretty thorough, but yeah, it needed to be that way.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you later, Rob.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Alrighty then. That was the interview with Robert Dam. I hope you liked it. It's quite a long one. It's a little bit confrontational there in the last hour. I think it was a bit interesting. Anyway, we've got to end off the podcast, but before I end off, we're going to end off with an LRH quote. And here it is. If every time a person, selects out an enemy and then communicates to the enemy and simply becomes the enemy, at that point, he couldn't have any enemy very long, could he? I love that one. That was from the Phoenix Lectures, and it's a little bit of it's almost like a troll quote, but it's true. It's pretty funny. I noticed that. You sort of want to stay in good comm with your enemies, really. I mean, obviously you want to totally avoid them, but if you've got one in your area, you don't want them to become your enemy. I think I sort of noticed that a little bit when it came to maybe teachers at school. I probably learnt that. I probably came across a teacher that was just a bitch, really. And it was in primary school, so it was like you're stuck with them for a whole year. So it's really horrible and real torture. You know what I mean? It's terrible. I mean, with my day job now, if I come across a bad person, it's just for one day. You know, I don't have to put up with the whole year, but imagine a whole year. Anyway, then I learnt you got to befriend them. You don't want to get in their bad books, because I noticed how full of rubbish they are and how discriminatory they are. Like, once you're in their bad books and once they don't like you, they pick you out more than other people and they single you out and they give you a hard time. But if you get in their good books, then you can get away with a lot of stuff and they treat you a lot nicer. So I realised you got to keep these enemies in your good books. You don't want to cause problems with them. Anyway, that's it for today's show. It's time for you to climb back out of this rabbit hole, out of this interesting Scientology world. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Captain Candy Dolch, the Space Cowboy. You have been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. So remember, what you thought was impossible is possible.